from the 37th parallel on America's haunted highway, it's Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.
What's up, everybody, and happy Saturday! Because, guys and gals, we are here with another special episode that we've just decided to drop right in your laps. Because today is the day that we finally get to perhaps the most famous and beloved cryptid encounter of all time, Bigfoot.
Chi-Chi.
What'd you say?
A Chi-Chi.
Yeah.
Oh, is that another word for it or some shit?
Yeah.
I'm the noob here. Back seat, looking out the window.
Sit down, boy. We're going to learn you something.
Window looking.
When you were young, did you ever breathe on your window and then write help backwards as you drove past cars?
No, I was drawing penises, obviously.
Steve was drawing big old Bigfoot dicks. Oh, man. Awesome. Well, you guys are probably wondering to yourselves, why in the hell have we been skipping over old Sasquatch with all these cryptid encounters? And why especially are we dropping this episode on Saturday, October 20th? Well, the answer is very simple. Today is a very special day, folks. It's an anniversary that we want to celebrate with you guys because today marks the 51st anniversary of possibly one of the most important, if not the most important, pieces of paranormal film ever to be shared with the public. That's right, folks. 51 years ago today was the famous Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot film. So yeah, that's right, guys. Today is the October 20th, 2018. I just said the October 20th. Today is October 20th, 2018. And 51 years ago, really the paranormal world as we know it changed, and people finally actually gave Bigfoot some credence. And so today is Cryptid Encounters number 5, episode 70, and we just got a lot of shit to pack in here for you guys. That is not a prison reference either. Shit packing. Yeah. I did not mean that.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you guys, on a scale of like 1 to 10, where does Bigfoot rank for you guys as far as like your favorite paranormal subject?
1.5.
Fuck me. And 10 is like your favorite, right? You heard that part?
No. Like I thought, like what's your number one? Not like a 1 to 10 scale, but like what's your number one? Like your top one. Bigfoot is.
No, I said 10 being your favorite.
Oh
yeah,
well,
Preston,
he's like
quit fucking this up.
He's like a 15. He's not even on a. He's like he breaks the fucking scale.
This is what happens when I go off script.
Yeah.
Poor little fella.
No, I think it's cool. Like for me, I'd say out of 10. Shit, now I forgot. 10's the best.
10's the best.
Why wouldn't it be 1, Sean? Number 1. My number 1 favorite is this. You're fucking with us.
So maybe I'm the idiot here.
Okay, so if 10's the best, I probably would put, like, I don't know everything about everything, but I'm just gonna do 3. Okay, for me, Bigfoot would be.
I won't dare ask you guys what your other 9 favorites are because
Bigfoot,
God forbid.
Probably aliens. Hell yes. Like
yeah, aliens are my number 1, and then probably like hauntings and stuff like that would be.
There you go.
My second.
I can tell you what's not on my list, and that's Loch Ness.
I know, me neither. I don't really give 2 shits about Loch Ness Monster. Nothing against Scotland.
Say that until you fucking take a dip and he's eating your ass. Or she's eating your ass.
Oh, wait, what? More prison references.
Oh, damn, I didn't mean it that way.
Do you want a Caesar salad or a tossed salad?
Or a Nessie salad.
Messy Nessie. That should be a sex act.
Messy Nessie. Oh, shit.
Oh, fucking hell.
Definitely getting the rated E for explicit on this episode.
Yeah, E for everyone.
Yeah, it's definitely in my top 3. And I fully fucking believe in Bigfoot, man, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most you could believe in a Bigfoot. Preston, pay attention. Mm-hmm. It's a solid 10 for me, I believe.
Why can't you go above that?
Okay, so you're going for things you believe in instead of like your favorite.
No, I don't know. I mean, I try to ad lib a little bit, and this is what I do.
Well, no, I feel you on that. Then I think that out of everything that could be out there, definitely Bigfoot would be in the top list. But I don't know though, because ghosts would be too, and aliens.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just saying, like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is you are all in, hands down, tinfoil hat. I believe it's a solid 10 for me.
It would still be aliens for me over Bigfoot.
I'm not saying no. Oh
no,
God,
for 100%, I believe. I believe this is really real. Like definitely aliens, man. Because you think of our Earth, our galaxy, and then all the other galaxies. You're telling me there's not one other alien life form? Bullshit. You think there's some dude in the fucking forest that's hairy? Like, okay, I get it. Right. It's cool.
Hey, calm down, Mulder Fox. This is about Bigfoot.
Right. I like how Preston just read Fox Mulder's name tag properly. Last name, comma, first name. Calm down, Mulder Fox. Hell yeah. Well, like Fox Mulder, I am drinking my my chocolate stout, my chocolate cake stout out of a Bigfoot glass right now that says "I believe." So yeah, hell yeah, man. I think that that's awesome. And if you want to talk about aliens, Bigfoot, actually, some people believe that he is an intergalactic prison escapee, and he's on the run, and that's why he's in the U.S. Well, I guess on the Earth is he's escaping intergalactic bounty hunters. But that is a topic for another time because we didn't even fucking delve into that at all.
I like my Bigfoots terrestrial, not extraterrestrial. So.
What about interdimensional?
No, I like them all earthbound, baby.
There you go. Okay, cool. Well, so let's jump into the backstory real quick here, guys. First with the Patterson-Gimlin footage. Early on the afternoon of Friday, October 20th of 1967, Patterson and Gimlin were riding generally northeast upstream on horseback in an east area of the Bluff Creek location. I believe that's California, right, guys?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, for some reason I don't have that in my notes and I've forgotten. But these guys are just kind of out and they're just exploring and they're just being, bros on horseback. And all of a sudden, sometime around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:30 p.m., they come up to this huge tree that's been uprooted and turned over. And they said the tree was so large that the root system that had been pulled out of the ground was about the same size as a high-ceiling room. So we're talking probably at least 8 foot by 8 foot. It's a large, deeply rooted tree had been turned over. And it was basically like part of a log jam from a really bad flood that happened several years earlier in 1964. And they're there just kind of, admiring just the crazy root system and just how, Mother Nature could turn this tree over and uproot such an anchoring system. And that's when suddenly they looked over right around the same time. And they see this really weird, figure crouching down at the creek bed. And they assume that it's drinking water or it's just kind of crouched down. But anyway, they both freak the fuck out. And they get this thing's attention, and it's kind of shocked. They're kind of shocked. And it stands up. And they estimate that this creature was about 6.5 foot tall. They argue 6 foot, 7 foot tall. They were about 30 feet away. And it was something they had never seen before. It was very tall, very broad-shouldered, and covered in kind of this brownish-gray matted fur. And like every good cowboy does, Patterson says, I'm going to go figure out what the fuck this is, jumps on the back of his horse, and takes off after this thing. And then Gimlin, of course, stands up, and he's like, well, fuck, maybe we should have discussed this first. I don't know. But Patterson yells over his shoulder, cover me, which means, get your gun out. And if this thing tries to kill me, go ahead and take it out. Gimlin jumps on his horse and they take off together. And they're riding, back and forth, chasing this thing. And he says they come to about 60 feet away, 60, 90 feet away. And they're tailing this creature, which later they nicknamed Patty after Patterson. Rifle in hand, one of them jumps off the back of their horse. And he gets this thing in his sights, but just watches it. He never shoots at it. He just keeps his eye on it. And in case it turns on them, then of course he can take it out. And the only thing that ever was shot was the famous footage. And the creature starts to walk away from them about 120 feet away or so. And then Patterson runs after it. And then in the result, he pulls out his camera and records this 59, almost 1 minute long video at about 16 frames per second. Real shaky, guys. It's our first shaky cam video.
What?
And you see the famous, figure kind of walking away from them, striding, arms back and forth, real long strides, real long footsteps, and it kind of looks over its shoulder a couple times. They claim that before they started recording, the creature looked over its shoulder a couple times at them. But of course, we only get the one glimpse of it looking over its shoulder in the video.
And because of modern technology, don't forget that we actually get to see a pair of big titties flopping in the wind.
See, that was crazy because that's the first time I read that was tonight. I did not know that it was a female and then it had breasts.
Yeah.
And then when I was like, oh shit, I watched it and I was like, oh damn, it does. That's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a recent development in the actual footage because we're able to, put things in the computer, sharpen them up, stabilize them, enhance the graphics to a point. It's really a strong rumor now that Patty the Bigfoot may actually be Patty the female Bigfoot, and it looks like there are two very prominent large breasts on this thing that even kind of sway and jiggle a little bit as it's walking. And when we were in California back in August, we went to the Bigfoot museum up there in Santa Cruz, and we talked to the guy that ran it. And he mentions that people have gone as far as studying this footage in the still frames, and they believe it even has a braid down the side of its head, draped over one of its shoulders. And it's creepy, but it also kind of plays on that idea of Bigfoot being a very, very hyper-intelligent creature. More or less a wild man than an actual, ape.
Creepy ass thing.
Right?
I'm trying to find what camera, because you think 67? Like,
1967,
what kind of, personal camera was that? Like on, like, what I mean? I'm trying to find a picture of it, but I can't find a picture
Probably
of it.
would have been one of those 8mm video cams that, didn't have any sound to it. It was just,
probably.
Yeah.
Where, like, you had to crank
if you hit
it
up
yourself,
Wikipedia, it might even bring that up.
Is it that old?
No, I think it'd be an auto feed.
Yeah,
an auto feed film. The same shit they were making homemade porn with back then.
Yeah. Hiding in the walls.
Well, okay, so there's a creature's walking away. It does the famous kind of somewhat 3/4 over the shoulder look at the camera for a second as it's walking. And at that point, Patterson falls to his knees and he's just in shock, utter awe of this thing. And people asked him later, like, what did this thing do? How did it behave when it saw you guys? And he's like, well, it wasn't so much like running from us, like, oh shit, I've been found out. It was more or less like we disturbed it, and it was more irritated or disgusted with us being there.
Like a cat.
Almost like, yeah. Oh, you again. Yeah. No, he says in his own words, it gave us an expression of contempt and disgust. You know how it is when the umpire tells you one more word and you're out of the game. That's the way the expression and the look felt. Like it was more or less just inconvenience and kind of grossed out that they were there.
That makes sense, yeah.
So pretty interesting, man. Very, very interesting. So, they watch it for a little while and then... you guys can watch the video yourself. I'm not going to give you an analyzed version of what happened in the video, but they say that, of course, the camera runs out of film. Gimlin gets back on his horse. Patterson gets on a horse, and they follow it for quite a while until it eventually disappears around the bend of the road, and they lose sight of it. And at that point, they're both like, wait, what are we doing? The adrenaline wears off, and they're like, fuck, this thing could probably tear us both in half based on its size alone. We should probably get back to town. So they get all the horses gathered up, they get all their shit that they can, and then they head on back. Before they left, they did make 2 plaster casts of the footprints. They go back to town, and of course, the rest is history as we know it.
Now,
so that's the fucking shot that was heard around the world when it comes to Bigfoot. Bigfoot was known years before this, and there were tales from the Native Americans and folks that lived up in the mountains of, the mountain men and the wild men and shit like that. But this is when shit hit the fan. Shit hit the newspapers back then, you know, the radio, television, and of course, you know, our beloved Bigfoot just took off like a wildfire.
And keep in mind, like I was asking about the cameras, it wasn't common for a lot of people to have cameras like that back then, especially filmed cameras.
Right.
So
right.
There's a lot of conspiracy people that talk about how at the same time, you know, this film came out in 1967. In 1970, really famous movie came out, which was called Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and which was a sequel to Planet of the Apes. And then with it being in the same town that was filmed in, like, you know, Hollywood and shit. And when they won the Oscar for makeup, they're saying like, this looks exactly like a suit that would be out of that movie. And it wouldn't have been hard for them to get their hands on something similar and then go out in the forest and do all that. But like the dudes, like one guy, which guy passed away first? I can't remember.
I don't know. We could hit up the wiki real quick.
Hit up my book.
Dead Space.
I'm pretty sure. Hold on.
But I'm going to argue a point with you real quick, Steven, that people who have analyzed the film and the angle at which the hips move, that's not something that you could fake, like being in a suit. Like that movement is accurate to the size and the weight of what that creature would actually be. So if it was somebody in a suit, they wouldn't move quite the same. It would have more human movement versus kind of that weird monkey man movement.
So is it fair to say, Preston, what you're getting at here is Bigfoot is actually Shakira because Shakira's hips don't lie?
Yeah.
Shakira.
Oh, my hips don't lie.
Well, fuck it. Let's stop the episode. 17 minutes in, we've solved the mystery, folks. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.
The cast at Pixelated Paranormal would like to thank you for listening to this week's episode.
I can't remember which one which one passed away first. There's one guy.
Roger Patterson passed away January 15th of 1972. He had cancer.
And Gimlin's is still alive?
No, I could have swore he died too.
But anyway, Patterson died in 1972, and he was like, until his dying breath, like he said it was real, and he's not lying. And what's crazy is that right before he passed away of cancer, he actually had a trip planned to somewhere. I'm trying to find it in this damn book. It was really interesting. Hold on, I'll find it. So basically, Patterson sold stills from the film in an attempt to raise funds for an expedition to a monastery in Thailand, where he believed a hairy humanoid was being held captive. But he sadly contracted Hodgkin's disease and died just 5 years after shooting the controversial footage. He held his story until his death. Gimlin, who is still alive, has never contradicted himself, or
he does not have Hodgkin's disease.
Has never contradicted himself or Patterson. So I thought that was pretty cool that like he was in the.
Oh wow!
And like that was another thing, is that they never like set out to make money off of this footage. They actually did like a lot of donating to researchers and like scientists and zoologists and all this shit. And then the only time he ever tried to make money was to just sell stills from the film, like a picture, and then to raise the money to go to this expedition to a monastery. I thought that was pretty tight. But like, where did he get this word?
That is kind of cool.
Hey, there's a hairy humanoid being held captive. You need to come rescue him. Like, what the fuck are you, Bigfoot Superman? Like,
yeah, that shit. The Bigfoot Whisperer.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is pretty badass. I didn't realize he died so soon after. But yeah, January of 1972 is when he passed away. So
that sucks. The other dude's still alive. That's crazy. And he was born in what, 31? Damn.
31, yeah. And he still does like conventions and shit like that. So that's pretty cool. Hell yeah, man. Well, I mean, you got to imagine like it's just two bros just doing bro shit, like going out in the woods fishing or whatever, and then one of them got a camera. It's no different than whenever we get new shit, like you get your first fucking film camera, you know, Steve, when you got like that fucking Apple Vision or whatever, iVision.
Yeah.
You know, I remember that. And like you just couldn't wait to use it. Yeah. So they're just out there maybe trying to find some video of trout or whatever. Or they very easily could have been two bastards out there to purposely make a fake video, and if so, good on you, because 51 years later, we're still talking about it.
And all the technology we have, and it's one of the few films that has actually not had it debunked. And that's crazy for something shot back then.
Oh yeah, Fact or Faked, and all those shows have tried and tried and tried.
I think that's impressive,
and they just can't quite do it.
So I think that lends credibility to them more, because you said they didn't try to charge for it or anything. They weren't trying to make money off of it.
Yeah.
And in recent years, there's been a guy, Rick Dyer, who has made numerous fake Bigfoot frozen bodies, and at one point, he made almost $60,000 from charging people to see this fake Bigfoot before people found out that it was a phony. This guy's always coming up in the news as,
Is this about this is the one that, I remember it was a while back, 2000?
Yeah, he mixed up possum DNA and all these different animal DNAs, thinking that he could make a cocktail and fool scientists and shit. And he had
he lured the Bigfoot out using pork ribs from Walmart, doused in a special barbecue sauce that he attached to trees. Well, it wasn't a Bigfoot; it was just a homeless person.
That's not the first time he's done it. If that's the same guy. The one guy who was in the news back in 2008 or 9,
he did
I think it was.
Too.
He had a really high quality monkey Bigfoot costume that he put into a freezer. And he was going around showing people that he had a body. And then, of course, when they tested the DNA, he had mixed it with I forget what all, possum DNA, something else, and another unknown substance. So probably motor oil or some shit. But
maybe that's the one I'm thinking of, because I remember he was saying it was frozen, and he's going to have it a tent, and he's going to charge people to look at it. And it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, there was another instance where a guy did that. He grabbed pork ribs from Walmart and hung them up in
the same dude.
And, took really shitty video. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's nuts, man. And that made me laugh, because once you cry wolf and you're found out that you're faking this shit, that community, paranormal fucking nerds are not nice people when you pull one over on them.
It's
so if you think you've got the balls to be oh guys, no, this time I did find one.
Santa Clarita Diet,
you, buddy.
When they go to that paranormal convention.
Yep.
It's a fucking madhouse.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. Well, today's episode is going to be a whole lot of fun, I think, because it's not just really about Bigfoot or old Sasquatch, as he's called. We've mixed in a couple other characters that are going to show up and make some appearances, because there's a lot of intermingling and high strangeness when it comes to Bigfoot, and he doesn't always travel alone in some cases, or at least some places. And he shares his backyard with some other high strangeness and creepy crawlers. But before we get onto that, of course, I had to pack some news into this episode, and I've got some Bigfoot news. So, you guys remember a while back we had Denver Riggleman, who was running with Corey Stewart, supposedly, or whatever, and then Miss Leslie Cockburn called him out for being a Bigfoot erotica aficionado. Yeah, terrible man. That poor. You just got Cockburn, son.
Bunch of Twitter's taupe.
Right. We will post we'll post a link. Hang on a second. Did you guys watch the video I sent you first of all?
I did, yeah.
Preston, did you watch that video too?
I did.
Okay, awesome. So I sent you guys a video to watch, and we'll kind of discuss that, because it's kind of a neat follow-up to the Denver Riggleman case. So we've got these two guys running for office right now. Let me get their names here real quick. We've got Dean Phillips and Eric Paulson. And Eric Paulson, guys, is going to be the villain of this piece here. So there's a really great, fucking amazing campaign video out right now. The dude named Dean Phillips put it out, and it's just fucking throwing some wicked-ass shade at Republican 5-term incumbent Eric Paulson. And apparently this Paulson guy is notoriously known for never showing up to meetings, never doing a lot of public meetings, avoiding questions, and just being all in all a real shyster. And he supposedly got, Big Pharma in his back pocket, or he's in their pocket, and just an overall sleaze bag. And so this other guy here has come out and said, I'm just going to fucking make the world's best video talking shit on this guy, and it's going to be really funny. So he's put out an actual fucking diss track video of Bigfoot. And Bigfoot's being interviewed, and he's basically saying, like, I'm really elusive and nobody's ever seen me before. You see me more than you see this Paulson guy. And he goes on to talk about how, like, he heard tales of this Paulson guy running, and he's never seen him. No one's got footage of him. And so basically Bigfoot straps on a camera and chases this guy throughout the city trying to get actual footage of him. And it's just the fucking absolute best. And we will put a link on that so you guys can all watch the video too. But dude, if nothing else, props to Paulson. Or not, shit, I had the names wrong. Not Paulson, sorry. The guy who did the video, Phillips. Props to Phillips for doing this video, because there's nothing else, creativity. Gets a lot of points for creativity, and that's some funny ass shit. But you guys are gonna have to watch that, because to me, like, that's the best kind of mud slinging. It's not dirty. It's not talking trash on him about like being a sleazeball or getting caught with hookers and cocaine. It's just basically saying you're never fucking there, and everybody knows it.
Yeah, it's pretty good, pretty clever.
It's classy.
Yeah,
fuck Big Pharma.
It was classy, man. I'll vote for him. Oh, hell yeah. Well, that's the only news we have really as far as Bigfoot goes. I tried to find some others, and there's tons of festivals going on this month, and some in November, because of course it's right around that anniversary date.
Wouldn't that be so tight? Go to a Bigfoot.
It would.
Celebration
it really would be
of life.
really cool.
I think one year we should try to plan on going to what's that gathering in the desert, like the Alien Con in the desert?
Oh, what's it called? I knew what it was until right when you said that. I lost it.
Yeah, we should go to that.
That'd be fun, man. I think that'd be a really neat deal. I think we'd at least go to Kansas City and go to Crypticon or whatever it's called. It's kind of like a crypto paranormal horror fest, so that'd be a shit ton of fun.
It would.
Hell yeah.
Got some great guests.
Well, yeah, oh yeah, there's some fucking nut jobs and some awesome people too, so. Well, we'll go ahead and get into it. Steve, do you have your handy dandy field guide with you? Can you give us some quick facts about Bigfoot?
You want them vital statistics?
God, I love it. I want to get you like badges like they give out in Boy Scouts. I picture you wearing a sash while you're reading this shit.
It's like that time you asked me to set the mood for the 60s, and I gave you like the census report.
Yeah.
Yeah. Preston, give me some facts. What all happened in the 60s? And you're like, well, actually, here's a 45-minute documentary about the 60s.
All right, here we go. Distinguishing features: foul stench and huge feet with 5 toes.
Oh,
basically anybody down Broadway Street in Wichita.
Throwing shade.
Height 6 to 12 feet. Fucking beast. Weight,
huge.
200 pounds to 2,000 pounds. That's a lot of twos.
Yeah, isn't it? Like 200 pounds. That's me. I'm a baby squatch.
Baby's little sassy frass.
I'll tell you which one I am when we get to it.
Range and habitat: forests of Idaho, Washington, Northern California, Oregon, and British Columbia, collectively known as the Pacific Northwest. But I think that's grown since this book, because like you've been hearing about Bigfoot like near Kansas City, which doesn't make sense, but
yeah. Oh yeah, and we'll talk about those. So now this book you're reading out of, that's what, a North American field guide?
North American.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
perfect.
Population size unknown, but presumably less than 2,000. Omnivore. Its diet is omnivore, and we'll talk about later about what they like to eat. Behavior: generally shy and peaceful. Bigfoot usually remains hidden from humans, but can be provoked to violence in extreme circumstances. It spends most of its time foraging for food, but has kidnapped or attacked humans, mostly female, on occasion. And the Encountering Bigfoot cryptology scale of 1 through 5 of how likely you're going to see this big bastard. It's rocking a 4. He's pretty common. Son. It's pretty common. He's the hotness, and when it comes to monsters. Actually, we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't shame Bigfoot. He's a pretty good guy. I mean, if the only way you're going to get in a bad situation with him is if you piss him off by throwing shit at it. Look at that thing. Let's throw something out. Let's shoot it. Why?
Right. Let's poke it with a big sharp stick. Preston, do you remember the name of that woman who was living peacefully in harmony with Bigfoots?
No, but I want to say that the Bigfoot's name was like Sasquatch Camus or something, and
yeah, she said she lived like there was like a pack of Sasquatch that lived in the woods behind her house, and like they had forged like a harmonious agreement, and like she'd leave them different food from time to time, and then they would leave her gifts that were like mice that were wrapped up in like dried leaves and tied off with different colored reeds and straw and stuff like that, and they'd be laid out across like a tree stump.
But did she also use the barbecue sauce, the special barbecue sauce?
The short ribs. Hell yeah, that's awesome. Oh man. Well, there's another piece of information that should be shared about Bigfoot. And Steve, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, talking about how it's been sighted, all across the U.S. Mm-hmm. Bigfoot, or sometimes Sasquatch, as he's also known, has more names than just those two. He's got different aliases, and it can be called a multitude of different things depending on the state or country that he's found in. And Preston, you've put together a pretty good list for us, so go ahead and fire at will.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. In Texas, he's known as Boggy Bill or Hairy Bill. Missouri, he's known as Momo. Pennsylvania, or on the kind of like upstate New York, he's known as the Alba Witch. Tennessee has to be my favorite, the Wood Booger.
That's great.
Ohio, he's known as the Grass Man. And Sumatra, he's known as the Orang Pendek. China, he's known as the Yeren. Australia, they call him the Yowie Mate. Mongolia, the Almas. Siberia, he's known as the Chuchanua. Africa, the Chimisit. And so last episode we talked about how Dad killed the Tut-Tut. So in Vietnam, they're called the Tut-Tut. Mm-hmm. But on the
Ba-Tut-Tut.
Yeah, the Laotian border, they call it the Ki Trao, which means buffalo monkey or big monkey.
Oh, a buffalo monkey sounds scary as shit.
Fuck yeah, it does.
Oh man, a monkey with huge shoulders and a fucking bison head. Fuck that noise in the butt.
And then
that's what I call butt fuck no. Yeah. Not only no, but fuck no.
All revolves back to prison, man.
And of course, in the Himalaya region of Nepal, Bhutan, or Tibet, we have the Yeti, or the abominable snowman. And Yeti is really a weird name because in Hebrew, like you call your old like bitchy mother-in-law a Yeti, but somehow that's the same.
What was that
term.
Noise? That sounds like a Yeti noise.
Yeah.
That was me taking a drink out of
laughing.
My Yeti glass.
And in East India, we have the Mande Barong, Florida, the skunk ape, and the two.
Yeah, in Florida, it's called the skunk ape.
Yeah, and then also the 2-egg stump jumper.
What? That sounds like a. Oh, you already said that.
If I was a Bigfoot, I would be the 2-egg stump jumper. There's a place in Florida, and it's kind of a swampy area, and it's called 2-Egg. And it used to be like a small mining town, had a small general store, and like I think the first purchase that anybody ever made there were like 2 eggs or something like that. And so the small town area is now called 2-Egg. And they have what they call the stump jumper, which is more like a mini Bigfoot, like a midget Bigfoot. And so they call him the 2-Egg stump jumper. And I think that sounds like a racist slur.
It does. But like to me, it's like, why do they have so many different names? Like okay, let's rank the names of like which one's the worst.
Yeah. I mean, and guys, we barely scratched the surface, because this thing also, like we said earlier, it's called the Chi-Chi, and that is my wife's favorite name for a Bigfoot, is the Chi-Chi.
The Chi-Chi.
But yeah, the Chi-Chi. I mean, it just okay. So already you have Bigfoot / Sasquatch, right? Yeah. He's brownish, blackish, gray. The Yeti is the same creature. The abominable snowman is roughly the same creature, but he's more known to have whitish brown skin and white or light gray fur. So it could be the same species, but just a different type, a different animal. So depending where you're at in the swampy areas, he's called the skunk ape because in swampy marshland he stinks real bad because he's always wet, like a wet dog or an old skunk.
Bigfoot fucking stinks no matter where he is. Like
exactly.
That's just typical.
Right. Rolls
Bigfoot.
in his own
he fucking
shit.
Smells.
I mean, and not what's funny to me. Okay, so real quick, the worst name. I mean, we can all agree the 2 egg stump jumper is pretty terrible. That's an insane name.
It sounds like a really shitty slur.
I've
been down over there, down by the railroad, and seen a couple of them 2 egg stump jumpers.
But definitely would be the grass man. That's terrible. This sounds like your Bigfoot drug dealer. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Man, and I didn't really look into this too much, but a couple years ago, Preston, I think you were at the house. Eric and Aaron gave Shayla the Newsweek special edition Bigfoot Science, Sightings, and Search for America's Elusive Legend. I just looked over to the old Pixelated Paranormal library on my desk here and forgot I even fucking had this, so we might cover that again some other time as another bonus episode. But we were talking about the Himalayas real quick. There's rumored to be up in this shrine, these monks have like the freeze-dried mummified hand of a Yeti and supposedly also like the scalp, like the skull cap of a Yeti as well. And it's a very sacred item and not a lot of people are allowed to see it. I think Josh Gates got a chance to film it on one of his Expedition Unknown episodes, but it depends on, again, where they're at regionally, what they're going to be called. And like it also has to do with your verbiage. So over there in Vietnam, like these creatures were probably brownish, the color of big boulders, so they called them the rock apes. So really just matters where they were at and as to what they're being called, but it's all pretty much the same little guy. And for whatever reason, they call him Momo in Missouri, maybe just to give it like a local name for, Missouri Momo. Yeah, interesting shit. But yeah, there was a really badass documentary that you and I watched again, Steve, and it's from the same group called Small Town Monsters. They're the same team that did that Mothman documentary. And this might have been their first documentary or one of their first ones, but they have another one about a weird group of sightings that happened in Pennsylvania called the Invasion of Chestnut Ridge. And that brought to my attention the fact that there's a lot of weird ass shit going on in the old Keystone State.
Yeah.
And so for the main stuff I want to discuss about Bigfoot, we're going to talk a lot about what happened in Pennsylvania. Because there's a lot of weird shit involving Bigfoot, plus a whole hell of a lot more. So we'll jump in the Wayback Machine here, and we're going to go back into 1973 in Pennsylvania for like a really weird, bizarre UFO/Bigfoot encounter. And depending how far back you go, there are a lot. What's that?
Website is so it's so someone's basement. Like it's
right. Yeah. Trust me, when you go looking for like the best paranormal stories, you find some shitbag like 1994 websites with like like fake marble backgrounds and green text. But this one does have this one really chalks the story up really well. I'm taking this from a story or a write-up done by a man named Brent Rains. So hats off to you, sir. You've probably never heard of us. So back in October 25th, 1973, near Greensburg, Pennsylvania, a lot of people saw a really strange light, bright red ball hovering in the sky. And everybody thought they saw this ball of light go down behind some trees over in a heavily wooded area. So this guy, he's roughly 22, and his 2 boys, they're twins, 10 years old, decide they're going to go out and take a closer look because they've got some ranch area off in the distance, and they want to figure out just what the hell this tomfuckery is going on, about their wooded area. So they grab a gun, jump in the car, and the 3 of them take off down this old dirt road toward whatever this light was that people saw hovering in the sky, and they try to drive off to where they thought the general area was where this thing landed. And as soon as they approach the general vicinity, the truck headlights start to kind of dim and flicker out a little bit. and he decides now's a good time to pull over. So he pulls over, and his lights kind of dim out all the way, and they see what they think is like a bright, kind of like domed object glowing at the top of this hill. And so, like any good horror story, they decide, fuck it, we're going to go figure out what this is. Because what better army do you have to prepare yourself with than 2 twin 10-year-old boys and a rifle?
Right.
So they head up this hill, and as the closer they get to this kind of weird domed UFO object, the louder this noise becomes that sounds a lot like a lawnmower engine. And as they're making their way up, they're following this fence line. And way off in the distance, they notice these 2 large figures kind of awkwardly lumbering up towards them. And they watch these things, and they're real tall, broad-shouldered, dark silhouettes. But they notice that they're kind of walking with one in front of the other. And one of them kind of takes these real long, awkward strides. But he stops at every single fence post and just kind of freezes. And while he stands still, the other one kind of slowly walks behind him. So it's almost like, cartoon chipmunks tiptoeing. But the guy, the 22-year-old guy, gets kind of spooked. And he fires a couple warning shots off at these creatures. And in his rifle, he's got what they call tracer rounds or tracer bullets. And these are kind of a pyrotechnic round that when you shoot them, especially in dim areas in the dark, they leave a bit of a trace of fire and burning ember in the sky or the air. So you kind of follow where your shot goes. And in some cases, if the rounds land, they'll glow for a little while, kind of like a very light flare. So they shoot towards these things, and they're not even really fazed by it. They just kind of keep on like skulking and walking real slow, but they're getting ever so close to this guy and his twin boys. And he estimates these things when they get closer to be somewhere around 7 foot tall for the first and about 8 foot tall for the second. And he says it's dark, but they can all 3 tell these things are kind of, they're covered in long, dark, grayish hair. And they had kind of a greenish yellow tint to their eyes, kind of like glowing animal eyes. Arms that hung down almost to the ground. And they notice they're making weird, high-pitched, kind of wheezing, kind of whining noises. And he says it's akin to the sound of like a crying baby, or sometimes like the cry a rabbit makes. And realizing these creatures are getting even closer, he fires a second warning shot over their head. Eventually, he fires 3 more shots directly into the tallest figure. And at this point, it stops, and the one in the back raises its hand up and kind of grabs the first one on the shoulder. And then it doesn't look like they've been injured by the bullets, but they definitely turn around and start walking back towards the trees. And at this point, one of the 2 twins is like, fuck this noise, and just takes off running back towards their house.
That'd be so creepy.
Yeah. I misspoke. Sorry. One of the creatures had been struck by a bullet, whined, and raised its hand towards the other one, grabbing it on the shoulder. So the domed UFO and the mower-like noise stopped. The light kind of dimmed out. The witness also said that their eyes were bothering them after they had seen these creatures. So later that night, around 9:45, a state trooper arrives, and he returns to the field with the man, the 22-year-old man. And the glowing on the ground that was produced by this UFO is still there, kind of like the ground is maybe radioactive or just kind of got a weird afterglow to it. Mm-hmm. And they both get out, they walk around, and they can definitely tell something large was in the woods because the trees are being kind of like torn apart. And it's that classic, crack, crack, pop. And, you can see the treetops kind of swaying back and forth. Something large is, lurking through these woods. And they were together for about a half an hour or so, kind of walking around the area, trying to figure out what it was. And they see this brown figure come towards them again, but this time more menacingly. And so he fires one last bullet off at the animal or the creature, whatever it was. And then they jump back in the patrol car and took off out towards the field. Now, on the 26th, around 1 in the morning, members of a study group show up to kind of figure out what's going on because they caught wind of this and they want to figure out exactly what the fuck just happened. So it's strange because the young man who saw this, the 22-year-old, he's standing there being interviewed by one of the guys in this group, and all of a sudden he starts breathing really heavy and kind of labored and kind of huffing, And then he starts growling like an animal at all the people who were there in this investigation group and starts just kind of flailing his arms around, swinging. He tries to punch his dad. And then another investigator fell to the ground. And they said as this behavior was occurring, the team members complained of feeling lightheaded, and another one had trouble breathing as well. The young man, still swinging his arms and kind of trying to punch people and shoving people, was still growling, and suddenly he collapsed face down, they say, in a heavily manured area. And then he came to, and he warned everybody in the group, guys, get away from me. It's here. You have to get back.
Yeah.
And it was just really strange behavior. Like whatever this guy saw stuck with him or made him rabid for a short period of time, and just started attacking everybody and then snapped out of this weird trance. But the father and one of these investigators who had been there, who had been knocked to the ground, helped the kid back up, and he pointed to the darkness, claiming that it was nearby, mumbling that he would be able to protect them. He also said something about seeing a man in a black hat and a cloak carrying a sickle in the nearby area. And then all of a sudden he came over with this really foreboding message saying, if man doesn't straighten up, the end will come soon.
That's true.
Really, really weird shit going down in Pennsylvania. And that's kind of like, the beginning of this Chestnut Ridge sighting and phenomenon. People in the Chestnut Ridge area in Pennsylvania have claimed to see Bigfoot walking around, getting close. People driving down dirt roads have claimed they've almost hit it with their car. They've claimed they sideswiped it. They've claimed they've been out on makeout points, and these things have skulked up to cars and scratched the fender or ripped the bumper off. All this weird shit. But what's really strange in this Bigfoot case, there's a lot of UFOs that are being seen in the area too. And that's something that you don't always see going hand in hand, is Bigfoot sightings along with UFOs. Just really, really, truly bizarre shit. But, watch that documentary if you guys want to. It kind of goes a little more in depth into Chestnut Ridge, so I won't keep going. And I think right now, guys, it's a pretty good place to take a break and put a pin in it, so to speak. And we will regroup, and we'll come back and give you guys the second half of the episode, because it's a good place for you all to get a drink or a little bite to eat or maybe something else. And then sit back down, because the stories from here are just going to get crazy. And we are back just like that with the second half of the Bigfoot Anniversary Special. And like I said, it's a good time to grab yourself something to sip on or something to nibble on, because it's going to be story time from here on out, folks. And we got a lot of stuff to throw at you, but it'll be nice. As a little bonus episode, it should just be easy listening for you guys. And we're just going to jump into some more high strangeness and some more craziness. And before we jump on the total Bigfoot bandwagon, I have just a couple more things to talk about in the old Keystone State. Some of the other weirdness that happens there, not really mentioned on that Chestnut Ridge documentary. So we'll just jump right into it, guys. There's a guy, and his name is Stan Gordon. Are either of you familiar with Stan Gordon?
Nope.
Really? I thought Preston would have known a Stan Gordon. Well, he's kind of a higher up in the...
Sounds like a Mason name.
Dude looks like a Mason too. I don't know what that means. He's kind of like a paranormal / cryptid researcher up there in I believe he's in Pennsylvania, but he's got a website you guys can all check out, Stan Gordon Info or stangordon.info. And I found his website because I believe he was interviewed on that actual documentary, Steve. He was the guy with the glasses.
Oh yeah, okay.
The combed over blonde hair. Yeah. Kind of looks like Sean Astin's character in Stranger Things Part 2.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I went to his website, and I've known his name for a while now anyway. And come to find out, there's a lot of weird shit going on in Pennsylvania outside of the 1970s when all that chestnut stuff happened. So I kind of put together a list here, just the weird shit people are experiencing up there in Pennsylvania. And I fast forwarded all the way to around the 2011 and then all the way up to today. So let me go over some of this weird shit, guys. Back on November 20th, 2011, At around 11:05 p.m. in the evening, this guy and his girlfriend are out driving on Muddy Creek Road, traveling westwards towards Highway 14, near a little place called Troy. And as they're driving down this dirt road, they notice it looks like there's something crawling on the side of the road. And so the guy, the boyfriend in the story, he kind of glances over as they're passing it, and he's like, holy shit, there's a naked guy. And he's crawling across the road. What the fuck? So, like, he slams his brakes on and kind of like, kind of turns sideways on the road. And they sit there and watch him in the darkness for a while. And then the guy turns his high beams on.
It's like sitting there watching a naked dude. Like, it's the cool thing to do.
Right.
Like
he's about 30 or 40 feet away.
Get out, like, offering help. Like, hey, are you like, paralyzed from the waist down? Like, what do you need?
Yeah, we got to give him the benefit of the doubt because, he put the high beams on just to figure out exactly what the fuck it was. And they soon realize it's not a person at all. It's crawling really low across the ground. They watch, and this creature is kind of like just like slithering across the ground, like it's dragging its back legs and kind of like, Lieutenant Dan, you ain't got no legs. Yeah. And then it kind of slumps over into the squatted position, and they say it was more like the way a kangaroo sits down on its back legs. And it's got its arms held tightly up to its body. And they say it looks like on its little arms, it's got real long claws, like 8 or 10 inches long, with one claw being shorter than the rest. And it has a body that's really muscular, and the head is oversized at this point, and it's shaped kind of like that of a wolf. And at the top of the head, there's these 2 bat-like ears that point straight up, and it looks like the ears are about 4 to 6 inches long. The whole body is covered with this dull, wrinkly, dark black skin. And at this point, they're thinking, all in all, if it stood up, it's probably going to be about 4 or 5 feet tall. Well, they're watching it, and they notice it's got real long, like canine-like teeth. And the eyes of the creature were the size of silver dollars, but they were just jet black, like inky black. And they've got the high beams on this thing, and the eyes are not reflecting light at all, like you would expect, like your deers or your dogs or your cats or any kind of nocturnal animal. But they said all in all, they're watching this thing for about 12 seconds. And then suddenly the creature starts to kind of change. They watch in amazement as the body starts to stretch and contort. And it kind of shifts its weight onto its back legs, and it stands straight up on its back legs for just a moment. And then it kind of slumps forward like it's going to fall. And when it does that, they said as it stood up, it's now about 6 to 7 feet tall. And as it falls forward, it lands on all fours, kind of like a wolf or a dog. And when it does this, it kind of glances over towards the truck, and then it kind of jolts like, oh shit. And it's watching them, and it takes kind of a deep breath, and it gets this startled look of like horrified, oh shit, they can see me kind of look on its face. And they said they almost make it akin to like you just caught somebody doing something they weren't supposed to be doing. They're like, oh shit, and it kind of like stops and stares for a minute. And I'm thinking this is kind of like the transformation in that movie, The Howling, like just stretching and cracking and popping.
It reminds me of like when you see like these movies where like something's like contorting and like they do like that, like almost like a pop and lock, like look. Like, some shady, like low budget.
Kind of. Like, I mean, because like the joints and shit are all like popping and cracking and snapping into place.
Dude was just trying to get down in the woods, just pop and lock.
No shit.
Somebody see my moves.
Yeah, and so it notices them and it kind of stops, and then it kind of squats down like it's gonna jump, like a dog is about to jump. And they said it reaches its claws forwards at them, almost like a swipe, and then it lunges this tremendous leap. And it clears this like 7-foot embankment. And they said it had to have been like a 40-foot long jump from where it was seated to where it landed. And the claws stretched forward, kind of like Superman, the back legs behind it. They said overall this thing had to have been like 9 feet long. And it was just so bizarre. And they said as soon as it disappeared in the darkness, your kind of favorite shit, Steve, a large bird, possibly an owl, rushes the side of the car, almost hits the passenger seat, and then it flies straight up in the air and disappears. And they weren't sure if it was actually an owl or what. They just found it to be really weird, almost like, hey, no, look over here. So this thing can kind of,
working together, man. Fucking aliens, dude.
Right. Yeah. So
collusion,
March 8th. Oh, man. Not quite a year later, March 18th, 2012. southern part of Fayetteville County in Pennsylvania. This guy, he's out walking his dog.
Like Lafayette?
In kind of a right. He's out walking his dog around like 11:45 p.m. just before midnight. And he's in his front yard and he's kind of away from the street lights. It's kind of, a darkened area. And he keeps hearing this weird like whooshing noise and this like muffled flapping sound. And so finally he notices the noises above him. So he looks up and like 55 feet above him is this large winged beast that he says looks like a dragon. And the thing...
Preston, do you like dragons?
Dude, I love dragons, but my phone died, so I can't do the Chinese sound effect.
Damn it.
China!
Yeah. But for real though, do you like dragons?
Yeah, they're all right.
Let's be dragging these nuts across your head. You fell for it again, bitch.
Got him.
Got him.
So he looks up and he thinks this thing looks like a dragon. And the creature swoops down and kind of glides past him and his dog. And this house across the street has an automatic floodlight that kind of gets triggered, a motion light. And when it flips on, the guy's able to get a decent look at it. And he says this thing's body has to be like 20-some feet long. The wingspan's got to be about 18 to 20 feet wide. And it's got this shiny skin, almost reflective, with no scales, no feathers, no nothing. Just this really weird reflecting body. The skin is dark brown, possibly red, similar to an auburn color, he says. Very specific. At the end of the tips of the wings, there appears to be like 3 to 4 talon-like fingers, and the arms that are flapping these wings are really just ripped, muscular, ripped arms. And the wings are thick, not like skin, though. And it says that even he sees enough detail to see it has like rear fins on both sides of the body. And it's got an arrow-shaped head on the tail has an arrow-shaped head at the end of it. And he almost says it looks like he had the legs extended far out behind it, like it could walk if it wanted to. Had a cone shape around the neck that stopped flat at the base. And he said, strangest of all, when this thing turns around and kind of swoops again back towards him, it's not menacing like it's trying to grab him or the dog. It's just kind of like just flying around like nonchalantly. But the head of the creature is almost lit up like a jack-o'-lantern. So like the eyes and the mouth are both lit from behind. And he gets a couple more seconds in. All in all, he watches the thing for about 20 seconds kind of swoop back and forth in front of him. And then it takes off. But he hears this really deep guttural throat noise as it kind of bellows out that sounds like a foghorn of a boat as it flies away. So then again, in May of 2017, a location near Chestnut Ridge, like we talked about earlier, a couple says they're out in their backyard and these big flying creatures land in their backyard. And they're familiar with local birds, and they say there's nothing similar to these than we're used to seeing. These are not native birds. They said these things stood to be about 4 to 6 feet tall, wingspans of at least 10 to 12 feet wide. Supposedly they got a couple pictures of these creatures. I couldn't find them, but they have large heads and necks that extend straight up. Kind of like the huge thunderbirds that are reported in there, or again, kind of like those pterodactyls that you were talking about, Presto, in the last episode.
Ah!
The residents of Chestnut Ridge also in January 2018, so at the beginning of this year, saw huge dark-skinned birds, again like pterodactyls, swooping around back and forth.
I like it!
Somebody's phone's working again.
Fuck yes, Steve. Keep it up.
But yeah, so the state of Pennsylvania, it sounds like it's just plagued by tons of these fucking flying pterodactyl bird things. A lot of people call them thunderbirds. It's argued whether they're pterodactyls or actual just big, like giant eagles. But back in April 23rd, 2012, in Washington County, Pennsylvania, at like 1 o'clock in the morning, this guy wakes up and he's in a dead sleep and he hears this weird ass kind of growl / screech outside. And so he runs to the window and he can't see much, but kind of the shadow of maybe some 4-legged animal standing off near the creek of their house. And he can't figure out what it is because the thing has really peculiar eyes and it keeps making this weird like screech or growl, and he can't quite identify it. And so he wakes up his wife because she must have her, animal identification badge on her sash, because he thinks if I wake her up, she can figure out definitely what this thing is. So he gets her up and they run over to the window. And the thing is now about 15, 20 feet away from the house. And they're like, what the hell? It's just a deer. Or no, the wife says, what the hell? It's just a deer. Calm down. And they watch it for a while, but the husband is like, why the hell would a deer be in the middle of a creek after midnight? Like, these things should probably be sleeping as well. So
like
finally he's like,
master of deer.
the beast master. So finally he's like, what the fuck? I got to figure out what this thing is, or at least shoo it off, because this thing is just staring at us through the window. And so he goes outside, and as he's walking up to this creature, he notices it's kind of dark brown in color. It's the size of a deer, although it could have been actually taller than a deer, because at one point apparently it was standing at their retaining wall, and the head was standing above the walls. I don't know if that's a 4-foot wall or whatever. It's kind of an odd thing for them to put in here, but he's getting closer to it, and he realizes this deer has a really elongated face, not really a stubby snout, but kind of pointed in shape, and the eyes are huge, like bigger than a golf ball. And again, they're not reflecting light like most nocturnal animals. They're just
drinking that radioactive water.
Yeah, they're kind of like this inky black, but they also seem to be glowing from behind again. So he runs up to it. This thing looks at him, takes a step forward, and then shoots up into the sky at like a 45-degree angle, disappearing into the darkness of the night sky.
Holy shit!
And yeah, it's a flying.
That would creep me out of it more than anything.
Fuck yeah, it would. So far, it's just a creepy deer with giant eyeballs, and it just fucking flies. Like, what the fuck?
It's like the dolphins and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. They just
right.
jump out of the water and just keep going.
So long, and thanks for all the fish. So, blah, 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 blah. You threw me off with that comment. Oh, yeah. He said the speed that this thing flew away was insane. I've never seen anything move that fast. But what was more peculiar is this big animal didn't have wings. He never heard flapping, never saw wings stretch out. It just kind of rocketed off into space.
Rocket Man.
It was a fucking reindeer, man. It's one of Santa's lost reindeer.
He's on a suicide mission for himself.
He just flies up.
I love it. So, speaking of flying things, all through 2017 and also in 2018 this year, people in Pennsylvania have been noticing these strange orbs flying in the sky, and they're described as being metallic, although some are silver, some are kind of black, some are definitely, hard looking, the surface, and others are kind of like these anamorphic blobs. But people say they'll glide around almost like they're on a track or very straight, like they're headed for a definite course. But then these little clouds will appear, kind of like these wavy, obscure looking like smudges in the sky. And these orbs will fly behind them or into them like they're going behind a cloud, but they'll never fly out the other side for a long time. Minutes go by and these things don't fly out. And they describe it almost like a hatch opening on the other side, and they'll fly back out. So people are thinking there are these strange, like almost sliding door portals these things are flying into. It kind of reminds me of that Phantasm movie with the balls that fly around, like they'll just disappear. It's super fucking creepy.
That's fucking weird.
Yeah. Really bizarre. And then May 2016, near Chestnut Ridge, getting back on track here, boys, 2 men report that they saw a Bigfoot run out in front of their car on Mud Pike Road. So close, they almost hit it, and as it ran by, it drug its hand across their hood. Now, it didn't scratch it or make any scrapes, but kind of like Bo duked across their hood as it ran off towards a tree line. In July 2017, in the same area, odd lights that kind of look like odd lights that look like fireflies are reported. And they said it's really weird. The lights are bigger than they're supposed to be, because everybody has seen, fireflies go off at night, lightning bugs. They said these things are much bigger, giving off bigger bursts of light, but they'll happen in, really rapid succession, like going off. They have no idea what it is, but in that same area, there's often a lot of Bigfoot sightings that are happening. And that's why some people believe that maybe Bigfoot isn't quite terrestrial. It could be interdimensional. And again, we'll get onto that maybe at the end of the episode, because that's an even bigger pill to swallow. But anyway, damn it, I've been getting caught up in all the weirdness and shit, and it's supposed to be a Bigfoot episode. So I've got one for you guys that straddles both of these fences, Bigfoot and fucking high strangeness. One of my favorite stories about a Bigfoot so far that I've come across. Late August 2017, in the southwest part of Pennsylvania, a police officer is out on patrol one evening, and he's just driving up and down the highway, and he runs across something unlike anything he's ever seen before, and it's not like any fucking Bigfoot I have ever heard of before researching this about a week ago. He's making his way down the highway, passing this big open, stretch of fields, high grass, wildflowers, stuff like that. And he notices what appears to be this really strange, dull, glowing ball of light kind of resting up ahead on the side of the road. And he's like, what the fuck is that? Like, is it somebody's toy? Is it a flashlight, a lantern? What the hell is this? So he drives up a little closer to it, and he's getting pretty close. It stands up or rises up, and he said, almost like it's on something's shoulder. And so he gets closer to the glowing orb, and he realizes this ball of light is resting upon the shoulders of something that's probably 6 feet or taller. The dull glow from the light made it hard to see, but he says it has to be the head of this creature, and it's about 8 to 10 inches across. It's resting on some shoulders. It's poorly lit, but he can see the top of this thing's chest and a section of the arms. He said it's got this really sickly, dull, grayish blue skin. The chest is about 18 inches across. But what's strange is while it's got some pretty broad shoulders, the waist is oddly narrow, and it seems to be almost sickly looking. And it's got arms, but they're, yeah, I know. The arms are like not quite proportional. Like they go down past its shins. It's got long, lanky limbs that almost look like skeletons with no muscle mass at all.
Basically
just
down.
like this gross. It's got this gross
Sounds like
skin.
a skinwalker.
That's what I thought it sounded like too. Like Mysterio and a skinwalker had a baby.
Whoa.
And there's a little sketch there. Of course, it's, I don't know. The guy's not an artist, that's for sure. But this fucking lanky skeleton looking thing is just kind of skulking, through the field there. And it starts walking in the same direction that he's slowly kind of cruising to. And suddenly it turns and moves off in the darkness, but almost like it just fucking just whoosh, like floats off, like glides across the ground. And, the tall weeds and the grass and shit are like separating behind it, almost like, in Signs when the fucking alien's running through the cornfield. Mm-hmm. It just takes off at a speed that the officer said he's never seen before. It was so just unexplainable how fast the thing just fucking turned and ran. And then again, in mid-September, just shortly a month after that, just a few miles away, there's another person out, and they describe seeing the same thing.
So,
just said
for the police officer, the question is whether he made it back to the evidence locker or not. Because this guy was on some serious drugs.
Right.
But then they were like, wait. What was it, next month, right? Yeah, just a month later.
Yeah.
Somebody else seen it.
Yeah,
so then they were like, you weren't high.
You weren't high. Hang on a second. Maybe Gary wasn't on them shrooms. But yeah, so another person reports seeing something that's about 6 feet tall, ivory-colored skin, and very sickly looking, like emaciated, just fucking saggy skin, no muscles, like a fucking skeleton that's got like a wet blanket on top of it for skin. And this one, they said, is a bit broader in shoulder, about 20 inches across. I say you guys are just fucking being namby-pamby. What is 2 inches on a shoulder? Nothing to argue about. But the creature, they said, walks out of the woods a little ways, begins to approach the witness. The witness freaks the fuck out and just fucking turns tail and runs back home. So that's all the farther we have of an actual report of this creep. But real fucking weird.
Yeah.
In February of 2018, a series of clawed tracks can be seen in snowy parts of Armstrong County. Motorists driving near the West Virginia border of Pennsylvania and West Virginia, our old stomping grounds, West Virginia there, reported seeing something that was creamsicle colored lumbering across the road. And they're talking about this thing being like 8 feet tall, kind of a cream white color. And it's always kind of just running around the Delmont area. There have been other reports of tall, thin creatures, too, in Allegheny and Westmoreland counties. It's fucking strange as shit. So they've got some weird, I don't know, emaciated Bigfoot corpse running around with a glowing head up there. I don't know, just some fucking weird ass shit going on. In May 16, 2018, a guy's driving down the highway near Washington and Greene County. And he notices a truck pulled off on the side of the road. So he's like, well, what the fuck? I'm a good old country boy. I'm going to go help him. So as he approaches this other truck, he sees the driver outside the car looking up towards the hill. And the passenger inside the car is motioning like, fucking turn around, look. So the guy turns around, and up on the hill, they estimate this thing is 7 foot tall, walking across the horizon, large shoulders, long arms. It has a short, muzzleless face, large forehead, covered in dark fur. It took about 4 or 5 long strides and disappears into the tree line. So far, the little bit we've talked about Bigfoot and the little bit that people know about Bigfoot, he's pretty docile. Like, you don't hear a lot of stories about Bigfoot, really just fucking shit up, just really tearing shit up. So far, it sounds like all he does is, walk across dirt roads, zigzagging out of tree lines, and that's about it.
He's a teddy bear.
He is. But we could fill the rest of the episode up with people seeing, something take 4 or 5 steps out of a tree, turn around and go back in. But Presto, you have found a little different side of Bigfoot that we don't really talk about a whole lot. And so,
oh yeah,
he's not going to talk about his sex life, is he?
Shout out to Denver Riggleman. No, Presto's going to talk a little bit about what happens when Bigfoot goes bad.
Yeah. I found the asshole side of Bigfoot.
Like the backside?
Like Bigfoot's asshole.
Like the cranky, like my brother side or a Bigfoot.
So he shits on cats.
Yeah, shits on cats. But first
Nice.
I want to start off by asking both of you because Steve is like our newfound fact checker, so I just want to test Steve's knowledge and maybe Sean's too. Do either of you know where ground zero for Bigfoot sighting is in Oklahoma? And don't fucking scroll down on my Google Docs and look at the notes. Like, I just want to know. Do you know off?
Let me get my book.
I want to say educated guess on my part. I'm going to say somewhere near Broken Bow.
Maybe, because where it actually is, I don't know if that's.
This asshole knows every fact there is about the 1960s, but can't tell me a map of Oklahoma. Yeah. No, I just know that Shayla and I got a cabin for a weekend up in Broken Bow, and they were very proud of their Bigfoot memorabilia and their sightings, and finding Bigfoot actually went out there.
What part of Oklahoma is that? Like northeast?
Oh, it's Broken Bow. I just told you.
Well, I wasn't listening.
I don't have a map either, asshole.
If you could guess, would you guess that it's like the northern part of Oklahoma or the southern part of Oklahoma?
I'm gonna guess it's probably right around the northern part.
Oh, okay, well, you'd be wrong.
Okay,
so more closer to like Texas.
Yes, Steve's actually the closest. Is Choctaw territory, which is southeast Oklahoma.
Really? This is where Bigfoot originated, just in Oklahoma, or like all in all?
No, just like in the Oklahoma area, like that's like ground zero for the most sightings. Like you'll get Bigfoot sightings here and there, but Choctaw territory is where like the tribe of Bigfoots is said to live.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and so this story takes place in like 1855, so kind of around the Civil War era, if not slightly before that. So imagine like,
could you imagine like living back then, prepping for the Civil War? And you see this
shit. Hang
thing?
on, Preston. Broken Bow is the bottom southeast corner of Oklahoma, not too far from Texas.
So Sean didn't know because Sean probably slept the whole fucking trip.
Right.
He slept the whole trip going there. Oh, we're in Oklahoma. Oh, cool. Fuck me.
Yeah, oh, it's like a 2-hour drive.
Fucker.
So yeah, imagine General Custer. Swords, musket guns, things like that. That's the time frame we're looking at. So the Bigfoot, or the giant man, as the locals called him, had been raiding settlements up and down southeast Oklahoma, all the way to Arkansas, mostly stealing vegetables, apples, chicken eggs.
Arkansas.
It's Arkansas. It's Arkansas, bro.
Arkansas. It's Arkansas. And so the essentials for the healthy Bigfoot diet. So Steve, I need you to fact check that
Boom.
again. Pull out your Bible there.
Already got it.
And let's hear Bigfoot's diet.
Bigfoot's diet. Obviously, he's going to be into fish and other types of seafood / river food.
Creek food.
Yeah. Creek food. Swamp
Creek
food.
fare.
Swamp. Fucking pond. Any of that shit. Salmon. Salmon.
Fucking
salmon.
Want to go to Arkansas and get some salmon?
Salmon, trout, mussels, minnows, clams, and shrimp. Fucking sounds like a pretty badass diet to me. There's some catfish in there, would be all right. Insects and related. So you got your crickets, grasshoppers, spiders, potato bugs, leeches, earthworms, Shayla's favorite, slugs, snails, moths, butterflies. Just basically a bunch of shit that is gross.
Yeah, he's a survival expert.
Yeah, for sure.
He's like the Bear Grylls of the Wildman.
He needs his own reality TV show.
Oh yeah,
or
he does have one called Finding Bigfoot.
Yeah, right. They just need they need the beast cam.
There you go.
Rodents and other small mammals, pikas, gophers, mice, rabbits, woodchucks, squirrels, and marmots.
Yeah,
rats,
marmots
and moles. Ugh, gross. Red meat, humans, deer, goat. It doesn't say.
Wait, how did you pass over humans so nonchalantly?
It didn't
Red
say,
meat, humans, deer.
It didn't
humans,
say
deer,
humans.
cattle.
I ad-libbed that.
Okay. It's like, what the fuck, book?
Yeah.
Deer, goats, sheep, domestic dogs and cats. That's fucked up. Elk, foxes, moose, bear cubs, mountain lion cubs, and wolf pups. Like coward preying on the fucking weak and the small. Berries and other fruits, blueberries, blue and red huckleberries. I'll be your huckleberry. Wild cherries, tomatoes, because tomato is a fruit, Preston, in case you didn't know. I don't know how to spell that. What's salal berries? Salal? Never heard of that type of berry.
Well, it's the ones that'll make you shit.
Oregon grapes. Like, why couldn't you just put fucking grapes? Like, what doesn't he be?
It loves Oregon grapes.
Yeah, like specifically Oregon grapes. The other ones, we're not fucking with it.
That's why you see him cross the U.S. because he's going to get his favorite berries.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's his.
Ding, ding, ding,
that's his odyssey. He's finding the best grapes. Peaches, apples, boysenberries, and blackberries. He fucks with the plants, so he's got spruce and hemlock tips, just the tip. Grasses, ferns, leaves, roots, basically a bunch of boring shit. You should probably stop eating that, Bigfoot, and just go for the red meats and the berries. Mm-hmm. This dude basically eats everything. Holy shit. Fowl and other white meat. Geese, ducks, Canada honkers. Sounds like a sports team. Jays, woodpeckers, eggs, stolen pigs. What? Why not just pigs? What the fuck is a stolen pig?
Pig? He steals the pig, bro.
So
he doesn't purchase them.
What about geese and ducks? Like stolen geese, stolen ducks? That's so stupid.
Well, I mean, nobody has a fucking pen full of ducks.
Some people do. Some people have.
Paul, go out there and check on our pen of prize ducks and geese.
Yeah, if you're fucking 9 foot tall, do you really want to eat a duck? No, you're going to go for that fucking pig because that's what's going to fill your Bigfoot belly up.
Yeah, true.
Mm-hmm. And you're not going to buy one because he doesn't fucking have a satchel full of coins.
Dude, oh my God. Holy shit. Listen to this. It says other acorns and other nuts. You know, that's not too bad. Frogs, tadpoles, toads, and other amphibians. Honey, sap, obviously, because that's good. Or no, honey, great. Sap, not so great. And then at the very end, no shit, it says feces. This greasy fuck will eat feces. And then after that, no shit, it says right there, humans, parentheses, especially children, parentheses. God damn.
Nice.
It got really dark.
No shit. And everybody's like, how has he survived this long? Well, he's eaten anything. Like, that man is so versatile. I'm surprised he didn't say fucking concrete and fence posts.
Broken glass bottles. Plastic beer containers.
Nails. Rusty syringes. Tactical knives. Hang gliders.
So, yeah.
Okay, Preston, what you got?
Oh, I won't say that. That'd be too bad. I'll say it. You can edit it out if you think it's too bad.
That just kind of that derailed my next rant because, like, I was gonna say, like, you know, the reports were very un-Bigfoot characteristic. You know, they had said that he was stealing human children and eating them, and I'm like, whoa, not my fucking Bigfoot, motherfuckers. Like, fact check that
Bruh.
shit. Like, you're wrong. And
Bruh,
Steve,
the book.
Yep.
Steve,
So like his,
got me.
so like, what do you think his most delicacy would be? Like, what would be the most succulent meal for this beast?
I'm gonna say he probably, when he wants to treat himself, he gets some of that Arkansas salmon.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more on the side of shit-covered children.
Shit-covered children?
Yeah.
Like, hold on a second, I gotta do this just right. I gotta jump out from behind the tree and make him shit himself, or the entire thing is wasted.
It's just crazy. Right? Just like all the other
Perfect.
shit is like, yeah, that sounds like something that a wild beast in the forest would, treat himself to. And there's just like feces, children.
Feces.
Like, what the
Well,
fuck?
scat, a lot of birds eat a seed, and the seed doesn't get digested, so maybe, who knows?
Nasty thing.
Yeah.
Corn, maybe he likes, okay, I figured it out. Corn is the delicacy, and that's why he eats shit, because
he picks it
corn
out.
never gets digested.
Mm,
Yep.
Indeed.
Yeah.
You know how bad we're grossing people out right now on this show.
Pretty bad, but
Yeah.
you know what? That's why there's that E for everyone on our podcast. Actually, that means explicit. Oh, whoopsies. All right, Preston, get the cart back on the track, can you?
Yeah. So the hunting party tracks down Bigfoot and finds a giant mound with the bodies of 19 human shit-covered children. And so the Bigfoots are covered in hair, and they smell bad of shit and piss, and they're shit and piss all over the place. So I guess
Probably got them
Steven-
dingleberries all over their butts.
Yeah, I
He
guess
eats
Steven's
shit.
book is-
Doesn't matter what
Correct.
dingleberries on him. He fucking eats human shit and animal shit. He's gonna smell like it, regardless. You're ingesting it.
But look, it's 1855, and these people were pretty spot on with this description of old Bigfoot, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But so
Let's lead some credence to this.
if all this child genocide happened with all these murders of these children, how come this is
19 of
yeah
them.
never happened before? Like after that, like we don't hear any of this anymore of like him. You think like he learned his lesson?
Oh, yes, he did learn his lesson, and I'll tell you why when I get to the end of the story.
Ah, there you go. Okay, proceed.
Because he ate his first salmon, and he's like, fuck eating shit-covered children. I'm eating fish.
Yeah. No.
Less risk.
Yeah. Sometimes you shouldn't risk it to get the biscuit.
Yeah.
The balloon knot.
But anyways, they charge in on their horses, and then the horses see all this, massacre of the children and the shit and the piss, and they freak out. And most of the riders are thrown to the shitty piss mud ground. And so the humans attack the Bigfoot. Captain LaFleur, who was in charge of this endeavor, empties his revolver at one of the Bigfoots, right? But it's useless because he's a fucking monstrous Bigfoot. He's like 9 feet tall, and your fucking like 1855 Colt revolver is not going to do shit for this giant monster. So
Okay, hold on, real quick. Sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting your story, but all the stuff that Sean talked about was like the creepy, like alien looking Bigfoot, and then the traditional, Bigfoot, female Bigfoot with the tits, like running through the forest.
Yeah.
Like that's your Harry and the Henderson. This is the fucking artist rendition that made him look evil in the movie, like the shit you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, this is where I'm going to make it dark because, after he, opens fire with his Colt pistol, the Bigfoot's pissed, right? So he rips off LaFleur's mount's head with one single blow. So imagine like this horse is like whining, and Bigfoot takes his big meaty hands and just fucking smacks at the head and rips it right the fuck off. And now there's like a headless horse. And then, LaFleur is on the ground, and then Bigfoot steps up to him, rips his fucking head off, and like gives a feral scream like, blah. So the Indians who were with him are like, holy shit. But then they remembered, like, hold up. We were smart, and we brought 50 caliber buffalo rifles. And because, Indians are good at hunting buffaloes,
That they got from the white
basically
man.
aimed at the
And the white man brought a pistol. You fucking
and
idiot.
so they opened up fire with these elephant rifles and basically dropped two of the Bigfoots.
Oh, so there's multiple.
So, oh yeah, they rode up on like 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after that, one of the Choctaw Indians who was really close with LaFleur, he's upset because his little white buddy is basically headless now. And
You killed my pale friend.
Yeah, you killed my pale friend. And so, anyways, he basically tracks the wounded Bigfoot with the gunshots and takes a hunting knife and basically stabs him to death. And so then, as Bigfoot's like bleeding out in the ground, he chops off his head for good measure because Bigfoot's not getting the fuck back up from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the Indians bury what's left of the kids. They give their leader a 21 gun salute, and they burn the Bigfoots and ride off into the sunset like a good old Western. So, Steve, when you were like, why hasn't anybody reported this before? Because Bigfoot learned his fucking lesson. He got decapitated from eating 19 children.
Well, okay, so I just don't understand. Like, there's like, yep, we just killed these 3 beasts. No problem. Never seen anything like it before, but... Like,
well, I mean, in Native American lore and history, it's riddled with the wild man or whatever they called it, you know? Just like any region you go to, whether you're going to Florida for the 2-egg stump jumper or the Himalayas for a Yeti, like everybody's got the tale of the fucking hairy wild man. And Native American children were always warned that, you know, oh, you better not. Basically, he was the boogeyman. Like he was the original boogeyman.
I would think if I was back then, like, I would just be like just a savage, just fucked up. I would have cut his head off and put it on my horse, like walked around with it as a trophy.
And then you would have been mistaken for a Bigfoot and had your head ripped off. It would have been this gross decapitation domino
No,
effect.
just like, you know, like when you take your trophy and you put it on your saddlebag of your horse and just ride around with it. Like, look at this shit. Look at this shit.
Yeah, but your horse doesn't have a head because fucking Bigfoot uppercutted it.
Or just put
Fatality.
or just put the fucking Bigfoot head on the horse's head like a hat. Ride around.
God, that's a whole other creep.
Dude, I'm telling you, I'm so glad.
Fuck Bigfoot. Have you seen a Bigfoot horse?
The strength of this guy to be able to rip the horse's head off with your bare hand. He didn't use 2 hands. He just punched it and the head just bloop off.
Is it safe to say that LaFleur, all he heard in his last minutes were, woof.
Yeah. All LaFleur heard was fatality. Huh?
That's crazy.
Oh,
fuck yeah! All right, man.
So we're gonna travel forward in time just a little bit to 1924, and this was one of the most widely known publicized cases of Bigfoot attacks. But I'd never heard of it before I researched it. I don't know how true that is. Maybe back in the day it was a popular one. Anyways, we have 5 prospectors by the name of Marion Smith, his son Roy, Fred Beck, Gabe Lefevre, and John Peterson, and they were out in the wilds of Mount St. Helen in Sasquatch County.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we're going to go with it. I don't know if that's right, but
yeah, it works for me.
I butcher everything I pronounce anyway.
Yeah.
Anyways, they're digging for gold in the area of Lewis River, roughly 8 miles from Spirit Lake. And, you know, they're out in the remote and they're walking around. And all of a sudden, they come across these Bigfoot tracks. And they had wrote that they were 14 inches in length and with unusually stubby toes, kind of like giant carny folk tracks. And it wasn't long after this that the men began to see strange creatures through the trees. One of them was a hulking 7-foot-tall gorilla-like figure that was seen on at least 4 occasions. Now, they described it as being covered in long black hair and sporting 2 4-inch long ears that stuck straight up. So, fucking like a Bigfoot elf. And so maybe that does prove our point that Bigfoot will fuck anything, because why else would Bigfoot have pointy ears? Unless it was a dog man, but they said it was a gorilla. So, anyways,
at
this point,
have you guys seen the? Are you going to talk more about what this thing looks like? Because I have a while back in the chat, I sent you guys the picture of this Bigfoot magnet that Aaron got from Mount St. Helens. Did you guys ever see that? It was like a dopey looking, like, this thing does not look intimidating at all. He's wearing fucking flat top Cortez shoes with red socks. He's got a backpack on, a walking stick, and he literally looks like a mixture between a sloth, a Bigfoot, and E.T. It's terrible. So I actually get to contribute that picture to the Instagram post. So boom, headshot,
like a German hitchhiking Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Oh,
shit.
So Marion Smith at this point fires his gun to spook off the monkey man, and I can just imagine that the group of prospectors that one of them was like, yeah, woo, you get that son of a bitch, man, you scared that thing off. And so they continue, and on the morning of July 10th, the other prospector, Beck, said that he sighted the creature standing some distance away near the edge of the canyon. So he decides to take a shot at it, puts his rifle up,
gets his
aims,
2 turntables
fires,
and a microphone.
2 turntables and a microphone, and then bam, he drops Bigfoot from a cliff 400 feet. So fucking just sniped old Bigfoot.
Damn.
Yeah. And if there's one thing that you can learn from this story, don't fucking snipe Bigfoot, because the men were relaxing at their camp. You know, they had the fire lit. They were, drinking their beers or their whiskeys or whatever they had with them. And, they were telling stories. And then all of a sudden, like, mass hysteria broke out. Fucking giant boulders are flying at their heads. And there was all this ruckus and noise. So they, basically shit their pants and then grab their guns and run into the little hobo shack. And as the rocks are pelting their hobo shack, like chunks of the shack are falling away. And then I imagine this scene of, from Predator, where they're just firing in all directions, hoping to hit something, but they never do. And one of the Bigfoots landed a hit with a rock and knocked Beck the fuck out. And so this basically went on until the morning hours, where the men were able to escape from what they dubbed as the Mountain Devils. And as soon as this story was out, the area became known as Ape Canyon. And the natives of the area suggested that the men had come across a tribe of 8-foot-tall hairy dudes with supernatural powers who they called the Shiatik. According to the tribe sources, members of this lost tribe were typically shy and hardly seen, but would extract great vengeance on anyone who killed one of their own. So had they not have sniped old Bigfoot, none of that shit would have happened. Yeah.
It's a vengeance demon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shit's Pumpkinhead.
Now we're going to travel in time a little bit forward. In 1965, news outlets around the United States reported of a very strange story from Monroe County, Michigan. A massive hairy creature had reportedly attacked 17-year-old Christina Van Arker as she and her mother, Ruth Owens, sat in their car.
So he's trying to up his age game.
Right.
Yeah. The Van Arker Bigfoot encounter occurred on the evening of August 13th when Van Arker was driving herself and her mother's toward their home. So it's late at night. They're driving down the road. And apparently at first they didn't see anything, but then they felt like this bump. And they were like, oh shit, did we run over like a deer, a dog, a bum on the side of the road? Like, we need to get out and investigate this. So Van Arker, stops, gets out of the car, and immediately she was grabbed by what Ruth Owens stated as a huge, hairy hand. And the Bigfoot creature that was about 7 feet tall, weighed 400 pounds, and smelled moldy and growled like a mad dog, grabbed her by the hair and fucking just started slamming her face into the car door.
What?
Van Arker passed out. And Ruth Owens, seeing this, was like, yeah, I'm her mom, but I can't fucking take on this 800-pound beast. I can't fucking do anything. So she just packed up and said, you're on your own, bitch. And then went
no.
Yep.
What a dick. That's crazy.
Shit.
Fuck you.
So there you have it. There's the violent side of Bigfoot.
Jeez, fuck, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know what to say.
Not so cute and cuddly now, is he?
Right. Not as much anymore. Shit. Well, I've got a couple more. We're not gonna get off track of this violent Bigfoot, because I like this side of him. I like my Bigfoots to be bad boys.
Yeah.
What you do?
Do you remember back when we recorded a couple episodes about the presidents and like the paranormal side of the presidents and all that, or whatever it was? So I came across the story I was trying to find back when we were doing those 2 episodes, and it was a story about Teddy Roosevelt and Bigfoot, and I couldn't find it an actual reliable story back when we recorded those episodes, because there's really 3 different stories you get for Bigfoot and Teddy Roosevelt. One of them,
they're both in a scat.
Right. One of them is that Roosevelt kills a Bigfoot during one of his hunting expeditions. Another says he had a face-to-face with it. And then others say that he was almost killed by a Bigfoot. And none of that is really true. We all know that, Theodore was a huge, huge presence, larger than life. And he was real sick when he was little. He was supposed to stay in bed the whole time. He had really bad asthma. He was always ill. And the doctor's like, oh, just stay in bed and you'll grow to be big and strong. And he's like, fuck that. I'm going to go outside and eat dirt and collect beetles. And so, he was an average kid. He exercised a lot. He did boxing, rowing, all this shit. And he became a really rugged outdoorsman. And so, unfortunately, the story with Bigfoot and Theo Rozo is not about him directly. But it's about a guy that he knew, one of his fellow hunters, like a really good buddy of his, named Bowman. And Bowman was a hunter, a trapper, and a frontiersman. He loved the outdoor life, fishing, everything else. Well, once upon a time, Teddy Roosevelt's friend Bowman decides to go out on a hunting and trapping expedition with another friend of his. So Teddy's not involved in the story. He only tells it secondhand. After finding an area where they decided they'd have some luck, they set up camp and go off exploring for a while. When they return back hours later, they find their campsites completely trashed, and they assume the culprit is just a bear. But they can't find any actual bear tracks. The bear, so to speak, had really broad, wide feet, clawless toes, and only left a trail of back footprints. So he's like, I know bears travel and they can walk on all fours. They can walk on their hind legs a bit, but they're like, this bear never touched down the ground at all with his front 2 feet. So they decide, okay, what the fuck? And they set everything back up and they go to bed. In the middle of the night, they're awakened by these really weird noises, kind of like guttural grunts and kind of low growling. Nothing's mad that they can tell, but something's just kind of like irritated. And so they look off in the trees and they can only see a little bit of a silhouette of something large and broad-shouldered lurking out in the trees, barely illuminated by the moonlight. So they do what any good old boy does. They pull out their guns and fire blindly at it while they yell at it. And this thing kind of gets spooked and runs off. The next day, they go back out, they check their traps, they get a couple rabbits, they get a couple fish, they come back, get ready to, cook up all this food, and their camp is just smashed up to smithereens. And they pick everything back up, they notice there's Jesse's really big footprints, they eat, and they go to bed.
It's the Blair Witch.
Right? And then again that night, the creature comes up and starts menacing them again. And it won't come by the fire, but it gets a lot closer to their actual tent. It's making a lot of noise, cracking branches and chucking rocks at them and shit like that. And finally, the men decide enough is enough. They cut the trip short. And
I would have done that the first night. I was like, no, right. I'm not going to fucking sit here and deal with this bullshit.
We heard about Terry LaFleur getting his fucking horse's head punched off. So they decide enough is enough, and the men cut the trip short. And Bowman's like, okay, you stay here, you pack up the camp. I'm going to go ahead and go get the last of the traps and see if we caught anything else. So Bowman goes off on his own. And when he gets back with a couple other animals he captured, he finds a horrible scene. His partner has been killed and apparently flung around the campsite by something powerful. The neck had been broken and also bitten into, but apparently the animal didn't attack the body, which was pretty much all intact. Bowman dropped the traps, the supplies, and everything else he could. Grabbed a couple little bits that he could carry and fucking just took off as fast as he could.
That is all that dude's fault. He was so greedy and wanted them fucking other traps in the middle of stupid trophies.
Fucking asshole. Right,
Piece of shit. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, all this crazy shit's happening. Hey, here's a good idea. Let's split up. I'm going to go do this. You do this. Comes back, dude's fucking dead. Fuck that.
You stay here and fold our trousers and take the tent down, and I'm going to go collect the animals and not fuck with that noise. So apparently you can read the full recounting that Teddy Roosevelt tells about the Bigfoot in a book he wrote in 1923 called The Wilderness Hunter. And I guess in the book, of course, he doesn't call it a Bigfoot per se, because that you can read different sources. I found that prominently Bigfoot was called Bigfoot right around the 30s and 40s and 50s primarily. Apparently, if you look at different, Native American tales, they sometimes gave him the nickname of Bigfoot, or some early settlers would call him Bigfoot. But what Roosevelt referred, huh?
Do you think with like Roosevelt, because he was like real big into consolidating national parks and National Monument Service, you think that had to do with that? It's like if this thing's out there, I've got to make sure it's preserved.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, and you never know because, of course, once he got a little more popular and climbing the ranks, you tend to kind of quit talking about a lot of that shit because people
you don't want to
take
look like
you
a
seriously.
nutbag.
Yeah, and I mean, he even to make it sound worse, he didn't call this thing Bigfoot whenever he would refer to it. He calls it a goblin.
What?
Which sounds, crazier to me. Of course, anyway, I would know the difference supposedly between the two, but
yeah, and not to mention like a dude, like someone's talking to me about, so I saw this thing out in the wilderness, and if he said it was a Bigfoot, I'm like, oh, really? That's cool. And then he said, no, it was a goblin. All right, let's go over here. This guy's a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I mean, you got to be spooked because back then you had tales from Native Americans, depending on the tribes, but you've got, the Wendigo and all sorts of other shit. And, we're just still kind of settling on early settled lands back then and still learning the wilderness. So God knows what you would encounter out there. But yeah, very interesting. I thought about getting that book. I mean, hopefully it's a book full of stories of survival and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's hard to tell. But
it was a beast.
Well, no shit. The last thing I have is a tale that was sent to me by none other than our very own Rob. And Rob couldn't really contribute to the episode other than this. He's a very busy man, has lots going on. But he hit me up with this story called The Spotsville Monster. And the story actually happens in his town, in his home of Henderson, Kentucky. Have either of you ever heard of the Spotsville Monster?
Nope.
Just another name for Bigfoot. So the story pretty much surrounds a family called the Nunleys, and they recently moved into an isolated farmhouse just off the banks of the Green River in Henderson. And as they're moving in, they get, a friendly warning from the family who lived there before them saying something was kind of stalking them around their house and something started to terrorize them, and that's why they're moving out. And they gave them, a fair, if we were you, we definitely wouldn't move in here, find somewhere else to live. Well, Red, the dad's name is, said, I'm not really scared of what the hell is stalking you out here. I could take care of myself. And the guy who rented the house first said, well, I'm just going to let you know the reason why we're leaving. This whole thing escalated when one night I had to fire 3 or 4 shots out my back screen door at some large hairy feller who was standing just outside looking in. Well, Red isn't too worried about it because he's got his trusty 12-gauge shotgun, and any problems that might arise can be, sorted out with this shotgun and a little bit of manly know-how. And they had already had a run-in with something the kids would call the Brown Man a few years prior across the river in a town called Reed.
Terrible name.
Right. This thing approached the family one night. They shot at it, and eventually it left them alone once it started getting, buckshot fired at it. So the Nunley's new house is on Mount Ridge Road. It seems very perfect. Everything's great. There's tons of fruit, tons of berry trees everywhere. And Red decides, I'm going to go ahead and plant a tobacco farm come spring. And his wife's like, oh, there's so much room out here. I can plant a vegetable garden. Everything's going to be A-okay.
So much room for activities.
Right. And because there were no other activities where they lived, they had 6 kids. And the kids all think, well, this is golly great because we can go out here and just run around and, kick chickens and eat berries and whatever else we want to do.
Chickens. Just abuse them chickens.
Yeah. Everybody, trust me, the chickens aren't going to be the winners of this story. The kids and everybody get settled in and they start noticing the chickens are beginning to disappear. Kids are all questioned. The kids aren't fucking with the chickens. They might kick them. They ain't killing them. But they just noticed our chickens are slowly disappearing, and something else strange is happening to animals as well. The 2 oldest boys, 9 and 10 years old, are out one day just kind of, shit kicking, and they find the carcass of some dead dogs in the fields out where they were hunting for arrowheads. But what's weird is the bodies weren't like torn apart like they had been attacked by a mountain lion or a bear. The bodies of these dogs were found, and they had been sliced open from their necks all the way down to the genitals. The entrails had been pulled out and just kind of strewn about the bodies. The eyeballs were missing, as were the tongues. But what was strange is they noticed for days no animals would eat the entrails. No bugs were planting eggs in the actual entrails. And this entire time, there were no footprints or blood splatter anywhere near the dogs. Almost like whatever killed these dogs did it somewhere else and drug the bodies back to where they found them. So, all in all, I'll paraphrase here, they lost a total of over 200 chickens, 1 goat, a horse whose head may or may not have been punched off, and they found the remains of the goat that disappeared, a pig, and 8 dogs total. So something is something is terrorizing them.
So this Bigfoot just does not is like not into pigs. He's like, yeah,
not at all.
Them chickens though, 200 of them bitches.
Fucking chicken chaser.
Yeah. Just don't let your kids shit on themselves, or I'm going to get them next.
He tried to get chickens to shit themselves, and he couldn't get a single one to do it. So at night, they started hearing these strange noises outside, real thick, and like whoops and hollers and everything else. And the area around the house is kind of swampy, lots of ponds, thick tree growth, that kind of stuff. Sometimes they could hear these growls and these whoops real close by. Sometimes they were, really far away. But one night in particular, they keep hearing this growl and this whoop and this everything else near the house. And it's so loud and so absurd that their 2 prized and treasured guard dogs took off running and hid underneath the house. Whatever this thing was scared them so bad, they ran into the house so quick that they were hitting their head on the floorboards underneath the actual floor. So this causes Red to get real pissed off. As a precaution, he and his older son Harold began remodeling the house soon after, and Red invited him and his family to move their trailer and set it beside the house. That way, he's starting to get like glaucoma or some shit, and he can't see very well. And he's worried that his other family, his oldest son, they're living out in this trailer out in the woods. Everybody should be together. That way they could be a tighter-knit family and kind of take care of one another. So he could also use some help, raising the tobacco fields. They move the trailer, and soon after, they place it close to the house.
And the wacky tobacco with that glaucoma he's got.
Right. They move the trailer closer to the house, and, they kind of set up shop. One day they're outside doing some work in the yard and kind of, hammering some nails and shit. And this man walks up from the tree line and approaches the house. He looks older, worn out, worried, and broken down. And in one hand, he's got a shotgun. And he gets closer to the house and he raises his other hand up in the air, finally friendly, and says, the whole, hey, how you doing? In a friendly gesture. And the adults finally come out. The dogs run up there and they all, greet him. And he says he's a neighbor who lives about half a mile down the way. And he had just been out squirrel hunting. While he was out shooting at squirrels, the gunfire scared something large up out of the brush, and whatever it was jumped up on its hind legs and ran like a man in the Nunnally family's general direction. So being a good Christian, God-fearing man, he thought it was his duty to come over and warn the family that something big is on their way. Well, they hit it off real well. And Red, boy, he liked this guy, and he said, you know what, you should come by and have coffee with me whenever you have the chance. They become really good friends, and of course, just buds. Well, one night, Red invites this guy and his 3 children over for a late supper. They've been working late in the fields all day, and, she leans her head out the front door, and she says, all right, dinner time, ding, 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 ding. And she looks over and sees this large, hairy shadow, 8 foot tall, standing off in the darkness by a nearby shed. She fucking screams bloody murder. Red grabs a shotgun. The wife is, crying, shaking, calls the police. They come out and can't find shit. All they do is basically say, yeah, don't ever call us again because you guys are fucking nut jobs. So one night later on, Rose sees it again as dusk is falling, and she sees it running from a field by the garden area, and it jumps a fence at the old fence row. Later on, this creature chased Red and one of the dogs out of the tobacco field he was tending alone one day. The 10-year-old Dean, he's out there one day trying to take some garden hose away from a couple of the younger girls who are playing with him, because that's what you play with on a farm, is a fucking garden hoe, apparently.
Chasing chickens.
Yeah, all the chickens are gone, so I mean, what do you got? Just hose.
Yeah, literally.
It's just 10-year-old Dean and his hose.
Dirty hoe.
So he's out there trying to, take all the rusty, farm tools with from the kids. And then he looks over and sees that classic fucking something crashing through the forest because all the thick brush is going and like separating as this thing's running through the forest. He gets fucking scared as shit. And then this thing busts through the tree line standing in a gully. And he describes it as being huge, tall, square-jawed, small, close-set eyes, covered in reddish gray hair, thin and patchy in spots, like it might have been kind of old. And then it goes on to say, blah, blah, blah. Some of the kids saw it. It towered above the full-grown cornfield. And while it was standing out there, it started swaying side to side. So, of course, like anything else, you have the newspapers come out. You have the TV channels come out. And everybody's interviewing them. And shit gets really out of proportion. And they start saying there's some giant green hairy monster living in the forest. And everybody's getting pissed off. And all the kids are starting to get a bunch of, hard time at school. One of the boys who's a fireman gets made fun of at work. And they're just suffering this really intense public ridicule. So everything kind of comes to a head when Mr. Nunley is out working in a field and it starts to rain. So he starts making his way down a tree line. The storm hits really hard, and he's trying to find shelter from this big storm. So he finds an old, abandoned, long barn, and he makes his way over to that. And he thinks, if nothing else, I can probably just sit down here against the wall, get out of the rain for a little while, and just, outlast this storm. So he runs in the open end of the barn, and of course, just like a horror movie, he looks inside only for a moment before he gets this feeling of, I'm not by myself. He slowly turns around and sees a huge, hairy midsection. This thing stood over 6 feet tall, but he had to look, Red stood about 6 feet tall, and when he ran into this thing, he had to look up to see its face. The creature's face is horrible. It was deeply terrifying, with a short muzzle, long pointed fangs set in both its upper and lower jaw, black skin, and strange red eyes that chilled and frightened him to his very soul. He reaches for his rifle strapped on his shoulder, and suddenly he's found frozen, unable to move because this thing's terrible eyes are just staring deep into him. The man thought that he was surely done for, but at this point, despite the beast's appearance, it spoke to him, but not with using its mouth. Instead, some kind of mental telepathy. His asshole. It says, "Don't be afraid. I will not harm you." Then it turned around and it ran out the open end of the barn that was facing the open plowed field.
Threw up a gang sign and just started running. What's side?
Peace. It was only for a few moments that he stared and watched the creature before he could start moving himself. And he just said it was really weird, is like he was frozen. He couldn't move. Either this thing had some kind of power over him mentally, or he just was scared shitless and couldn't do a damn thing. So Red realizes it's no ordinary monster, and he asks his neighbor if he thought it might come back and steal one of the children one night. The man replied that it's not likely. He's never seen it actually attack a human before. It's more just kind of, quizzical about humans. But if it ever decided to come take one of the children, there would be nothing the family could do, and they would all be done for. So they decide, okay, we're going to stick it out for a little while longer. But what Red chose as a precaution to keep the family safe was a 5-gallon bucket of kerosene and a mop near the kitchen door. Because he thought, in case this thing happened to come in one day like it did the former renters, he could kick the bucket of kerosene over, make a torch out of the mop, and either A, chase the thing out, or B, burn up the entire family, beast and all, inside the house. Because fucking dark real quick. Because he says, I would rather lose the entire family together than suffer the loss of only one of us or two of us to this creature. He said it would be far easier for the family to just die together than mourn the loss and the kidnapping of one of their own. So they pack up.
That you're on your own, Red.
Right. So they pack up their shit and they move into the safety of the city. So what's interesting here is apparently Bart Nunley is the guy whose website I got this information from. So one of the kids that this happened to, one of Red's children, his name is Bart, and he actually goes on to research this and talk about it. And Rob actually hit this guy up years ago when we first started the podcast, but he never replied back. So apparently it's a story that Rob's known for a while. But something else that is mentioned here as well is later on, years later, Bart Nunley, Red's son, after they moved out, he goes back in like 2005 and he interviews the neighbor and kind of catches up with them. And the neighbor's like, oh, yeah, I stand by everything I said. All the shit that I ever said and everything I ever saw is real. But I just quit talking about it because I got sick of the ridicule I got from all the people in town. But he said he never really talked about the strangest thing that he ever saw. And Red mentions that, years later, he was out just taking a walk like he normally did, probably halfway looking for weird shit, halfway just taking a walk. And he noticed out in the field this weird kind of wavy patch of air, almost like you see on a hot summer day coming off the hood of a car. But it wasn't really hot outside, but this wavy fucking light coming off the ground suddenly opened up and a creature walked out of it. Again, almost like those spheres I told you guys about, where it's almost like a portal or a hatch opened up and something walked out. And he said he watched it for a little while. The thing turned around and looked at him, almost got real pissed off, and then telepathically told him, "Stop looking at me!" And then turned around and walked back inside of this weird little portal. But he goes on to say he saw other kind of creatures walk in and out of this portal all the time. Like it wasn't unusual to be walking by and to see these things stepping through it like a gate. But he said he quit talking about it also due to the fact that one day men showed up in military uniforms and black suits and told him, you didn't see anything, nothing happened, and if you ever want to live to tell the tale, on the right side of the metal bars of a prison, you'll learn real quick not to tell this story to anybody else. Otherwise, you'll be watching your children grow from the other side of a jail cell. So whatever the fuck happened to them was a pretty serious deal.
Crazy shit.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Fucking hell, right? Well, let me finish one more story. I think I might have the ultimate Bigfoot Gone Wild savage story to finish this on, and it's also going to be a follow-up to a story we talked about on a former episode. You guys remember the Dyatlov Pass incident?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The hikers go out to finish earning their certifications for this, mountain hiking certificate they have to get. And of course, all 9 of them, or 8 or 9 of them, are all killed, unfortunately, by some weird, potentially supernatural force. Well, if you want to go back and listen to it, you can either A, Google it, or B, go back and listen to episode 46. But to give you the quick little catch up here, these 8 or 9 hikers go out and they're gone for several days, and then they're all discovered dead. And the scene is really strange because the tent they were all staying in was cut from the inside. Everybody was found dead around the area, several hundreds of feet away. Some of them were found half dressed, some of them fully dressed, some of them in various states of undress. But 2 of them were found near a tree. Their hands were burned, and they think that might be because they were trying to start a fire. And branches were broken out of one of the trees 16 feet up in the air, which is really bizarre. 2 of them were found. I think the other 4 were discovered, months later after the snow had cleared. But something strange about some of the bodies that were discovered is Ludmila Dubinina and Zolotrev, 2 of our hikers, were discovered to have fractured ribs. And then Nikolai had major skull fractures. And one of the investigators who had been kind of, doing the report and working on the case compared the force required to do such the damage to their bodies would be like a human in a severely bad car crash, because their insides were smashed pretty well, but there was no trauma to the outside of their bodies. So he thought whatever hit them had to have hit them hard and fast and then left the scene. So they couldn't find any weapons. There were no boulders anywhere, which lays credence partly to the idea that it might have been an avalanche or some rocks that rolled down and then continued to roll the paths, which would have been covered up by snow. But once again, no soft tissue damage was done to any of them, save for one. They were just, crushed really violently. When Dubonina was found, she was the one that had the weirdest injuries of all. Her tongue and her eyes had been torn out of her head. And not a lot of people knew what the hell could have done this. And so the question arises, who would attack somebody, smash their rib cage, and then rip out their eyeballs and their tongues? Why would they do it? Did another skier from the group cut it out, her tongue? Did something attack them? Or could it have been the rumored abominable snowman, which some people said actually skulked that area? So something that is bizarre and will never fully be explained is in one of their journals, they found a quote that goes something to the effect of, "As for the snowmen, we know they exist." And then when they developed some film from one of the cameras they found, I've included the picture, guys, in here in the notes, and we'll put it on the Instagram page. There is a snowy forest area with a really weird, bulky, dark figure coming from behind one of the trees. So that is a bit that sometimes is kept out of a lot of stories. The fact that they've got a journal, because oftentimes hikers and campers and outdoors people would do that. They'd make a journal of what all happened. A weird-ass quote that says, "As for the snowmen, we know they exist," and this weird, blurry photo of what appears to be a Bigfoot leaning out from one of the trees. So at least one other student's diary or journal is found, and it's mentioned that a big fight had erupted between one of the hikers and one of the mountain village people called the Manzi. And in a lot of these places, when you have, mountain areas, Tibet, stuff like that, Russia, you do have these villages or these what you would call natives, and they're not savages. It's just the people like, Eskimos or whatever that inhabit an area as just your native population. In this area where the Dyatlov Pass incident happened, these folks were called the Manzi. And there was a little bit of an altercation, and the Manzi people actually got interrogated later because there was rumor that there was a fight that went down. So people start thinking, oh, okay, what happened was they probably pissed off these Manzi people at a convenience store or in the village, and then these Manzis just attacked and killed all these skiers, these hikers. So the Manzi get investigated, and they get interrogated, and they do own up to, yes, one or two of our own did get into a yelling match with one of the hikers, but nobody touched them. There was no fisticuffs, no swings, no blows, just an altercation, and then it all kind of fizzled out. But it turns out the Manzi may have been trying to warn the students, the hikers, to stay away from the Mountain of the Dead, as they called it, because not just for obvious safety reasons, but also because some fearsome creature that inhabits the snowy mountains called the Mink was also potentially stalking our hikers. Now again, to further support the innocence, a doctor had firmly stated the injuries perpetuated on some of the students could not have been caused by a human being because of the force involved in executing the blows. Remember that famous quote about the wounds were akin to the pressure of trauma from a high-speed car wreck? Well, in the area, the Manzi have told tales for decades about a forest giant they call the Mink, which sounds very much like our Bigfoot. They describe it as a big, strong, and hairy creature that likes to hunt deer, and it likes to rip out their tongues, their eyes, and their oral soft tissue to be eaten. The Manzi say that the Mink makes a horrible whistling noise while they prowl through the forest, and also that they really don't like it when humans try to whistle back or whistle in the forest, so nobody whistles while they're in the forest either. So these snowmen are fond of soft tissue, and especially the tongue and eyes and cheek meat of deers. Ludmila's corpse was found to have a tongue missing and torn out and eyeballs gone as well. And something else rumored to be in the actual investigation is footprints in the snow 16 inches long, which is really, really strange. And then the last little bit here that I'm going to include is something that really fucking sent chills down my back. There's a lot of blood that was found in Ludmila's stomach, which means most likely when her tongue was ripped out, she was still alive when it was pulled out of her mouth.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Yeah, isn't that fucked? So there's a chance that the Dyatlov hikers may have actually been murdered by some Yeti-like creature called the mink. And, yeah. Now, what's interesting here, and I like to play devil's advocate, in that journal, supposedly lots of sources say yes, there was some kind of quip or quote about yes, the snowmen are real. The Mansi folk have also been referred to as snowmen because they are, people who live up high in the mountains, kind of like your Eskimos. So you can easily say that little quip in the journal is about the Mansi because, yes, they discovered the Mansis or, came across the Mansis, so to speak. So it's a little joke amongst hikers. But we're never going to know just what the fuck actually happened or
mystery,
what Bigfoot is. So
it's unusual and strange.
So Presto, you mentioned that you might want to go ahead and give our thoughts on who or what Bigfoot really is.
Yeah.
Cool. So I will save the best for last because I've got this special Newsweek edition of the Bigfoot issue. Check this shit out. I don't think you have a camera on, Presto, but look at that shit. We'll include that. We'll include that as well on the companion guide. But yeah, this thing was badass. It's from 2016. It's a whole issue of Time dedicated to Bigfoot.
Rubbish.
But yeah, take that, Steve, and your companion guide that you have. So Presto, what do you think Bigfoot is, man?
So I think that, and we might have brought this up on another episode when we talked about Bigfoot, but you guys remember the movie with Antonio Banderas, The 13th Warrior?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was actually based off a true story. So they found in like Nova Scotia, they found old runestones that had this story engraved on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a history professor when I went to WSU that has said that that was actually academically thought to be the last known encounter of modern man with Neanderthal. When they talked about how, like in that story, these men that were kind of like hairy and brutish that lived in cave systems and blah blah blah. And so in World War II or World War I, there was a German patrol in Russia that was trying to find Russian soldiers, like just people that were hiding out in the woods or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they came across a cave, and they started to hear this grunting and whooping noise, and out runs this 8-foot tall hairy individual that was like, swinging a club, and the German soldiers basically filled it full of lead and killed it. And when they went up there, the commander was like, nobody talk about this, yeah. And so they just kind of wrote it off in the report like, I see you shaking your head in my crappy German accent. Yeah, we're not going to talk about the Bigfoot, yeah. We killed the hairy man, yeah.
These are Swedish Germans.
Yeah. So, what they saw coming out of the cave system was, this hairy individual. And we can't really pinpoint like when we think Neanderthal died out. Because now we actually have a historical account that they were, during the Viking time at least, and that was kind of the last documented encounter. And if you think about all the Native American descriptions, they always talk about them as being the wild men or the wild man, like a lost tribe, and and they also talk about them as being cannibals. So, like the Paiute Indians in Arizona said that the tall, hairy red giants that lived in the caves, that they were cannibals.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I had discussed earlier in the week about how, gorillas were thought to have been a myth up until like the late 1800s when they finally found them in the Congos.
Mm-hmm.
And it's reported that when a gorilla dies in the wild, that the gorillas that are in the pack will actually eat that dead gorilla.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really hard to find gorilla bones. Well, we know that reports Yeah, if we know that reports from Indians say that these lost tribe of men are cannibals, what's not to think that they don't do the same thing, that when one of them dies, they just go ahead and cannibalize and eat it, because they're very primitive and they don't have a form of burial like modern man does.
Well,
So
it's funny to make a joke real quick that's kind of half serious.
They'll eat
That's
shit.
always,
They'll eat bones.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to kind of say. Everybody says the same thing. If you want evidence of a creature, it's going to shit somewhere. But if these things eat their own scat, maybe that's why they don't find shit. Unintentional pun, 10 points. Man, we ain't found shit.
Man, that's pretty crazy because they're like the ultimate recycle machine.
Kind of, yeah. They're like their own human centipede.
Yeah. Ooh.
Grody.
See some serious shit.
Well, okay, so check this out. We don't get very biblical on the show, obviously. But when I was kind of perusing through this episode of Time, I got to kind of the end of the actual magazine. And there's a short one-page article here called Wild Theories. The mysteries surrounding Bigfoot have yielded some unusual speculation about the creature's origin. This here says, okay, I'm just going to read it for you. Most Bigfoots hold the belief, I'm going to start over. Most Bigfooters hold the belief Sasquatch, while frustratingly shy and wildly enough to remain hidden from the larger world, is more or less a natural creature. Bigfoot may be a magnificent beast, but at the end of the day, it's just another member of the animal kingdom. Others think differently, however. The more grandiose theories about Bigfoot's origin claim to be that it is a supernatural or religious being. Though the Mormon Church has yet to take an official stance on some members think that the beast is a biblical Cain, the son of Adam and Eve, who slays his own brother Abel. In 1935, David W. Pattern, one of the first apostles of the Mormon Church, claimed that he encountered a very tall, hair-covered figure with dark skin walking alongside the road. When Patton questioned the creature, it explained to the apostle about its fate to miserably wander the earth, unable to die, and its mission to destroy the souls of men. Patton deduced the figure's identity as Cain, and based on his description, others have concluded Cain and Bigfoot are one and the same.
So So Cain was banished to Earth to just roam, or not banished to Earth. He's banished basically and just sent to basically live forever and just roam around.
Yeah, I mean I don't remember that.
And take their soul, like they're saying.
I don't remember that part of the Bible.
Yeah, so they're saying that God did this, like God punished him to that.
Yeah, he was punished. Yeah, whenever he killed his own brother. Yeah.
So why would he want him to kill more people?
See, that was my question when I read this article as well.
It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yep. That is a very good question. Well, when several Bigfoot sightings occurred in South Weber, Utah in the 1980s, many Mormons pointed to Patton's story as an explanation. Some native people, however, of the American continent also hold that Sasquatch is more flesh and blood. Reporters on the Bigfoot newsletter site The Track Record asked Native Americans belonging to the Ojibwa, Dakota, and Lakota tribes about their Bigfoot beliefs, and members from all three tribes confirmed Bigfoot as a spirit guide who delivers signs or messages signaling a need for change. Additionally, some native elders believe Bigfoot possesses psychic powers, allowing him to elude potential captors. And if you remember, an hour and a half ago when I told that story about Chestnut Ridge, that kid did mention, that 22-year-old, that he got that warning sign about, man needs to straighten up and quit being such dicks and all that kind of stuff. So that is kind of interesting. And then the Nunley account with Red, he said that, he got the psychic message of, we're not going to hurt you. And then later on his neighbor heard the guy just say, quit looking at me. So anyway, other Bigfooters believe the animal must come from beyond the stars. During a 1997 interview with Bigfoot Encounters, researcher Peter Gutierrez relayed an account from a rural Seattle man who believed he saw not only Bigfoot, but also the UFO on which the creature arrived. According to Gutierrez, the man saw two UFO knots descend from their spacecraft with a Bigfoot-like creature obediently following them behind into the woods. The man recorded what he believed to be the whirling sounds of the UFO, which his neighbor also claimed to have heard in the days preceding the sightings. Another variation of the Bigfoot is an alien school of thought claims the creator has no need for a UFO to reach Earth. Oh, sorry. The creature has no need for a UFO to reach Earth. The reasons Bigfoot is another other dimensional creature and can teleport anytime it wants to. Also in 1997, an article in Utah's Desert News featured a man named Ron Mower, who revealed he had seen other dimensional Bigfoots 9 times. Mower also divulged the existence of both good and evil Bigfoots, and that an evil one once teleported itself into his home to stalk him. Fortunately, Mower noted the evil dimensional hopping Bigfoots can be identified by their red eyes, so there's little chance in confusing the two.
And red balls.
They're big, bushy
teleporting
red
Bigfoot,
balls.
man. I'm not feeling this story.
Hang on a second. Does that Bigfoot have red balls? Nope. No thanks.
I don't fuck with the red balls.
So, kind of a cool way to wrap up everything is we have good Bigfoots who just like to walk across streets and, Bo Duke across the hoods of trucks. Then we have the Bigfoots that like to just fucking punch horses' heads off and pull out tongues.
And then we have every Bigfoot that loves to eat shit.
That's true.
It's fucking so nasty.
Preston, you have your mic muted.
Oh, yeah.
You dope. Oh, awesome. Well, that was fun. I enjoyed that. That's a lot of shit. That's going to be at least a 2-hour episode for no good reason.
Word.
Just kidding. It's a good reason because it is the anniversary of the Bigfoot. So we always kind of finish this up on stuff that people should watch. Do you guys have any of your own recommendations of Bigfoot-related movies or things to check out?
What you listed is some of the ones I've seen.
There you go.
Yeah.
If you guys want to check out the Finding Bigfoot Season 4, there's an episode called Bigfoot of Oz, and that is where my old friend Liz reportedly saw a Bigfoot back in Leon, Kansas, not too far from about an hour and a half outside of Wichita. But yeah, very interesting story she has. Of course, the cult classic, Harry and the Hendersons. Check that out. Good stuff. Bobcat Goldthwait had a Willow Creek movie he did. It's like a found footage Bigfoot movie. Check that out sometime. It's a lot of fun to watch. I really enjoyed it.
The comedy?
No, you'd think it would be. No, it's a serious as shit horror movie. It's like Blair Witch with Bigfoot. Yeah, it's worth a watch for sure. And then I told you guys to check it out. I don't know if you did or not. Everybody, if you want a good, just light-hearted, feel-good movie, if you might need a break from all the blood and guts and gore of Halloween movies, check out an outstanding movie on Netflix called Pottersville. It stars Michael Shannon, so that's a reason enough to watch it. And he's playing like just kind of a goofy, happy-go-lucky guy in this one, which is really weird because normally he plays the straight man who's killing people or being a creep. And yeah, it's pretty stellar little movie. My wife and I watched it and pretty blown away by it. It's pretty fun. Kind of a Christmas movie, so you might want to wait and watch it around Christmas. You guys got anything you want to plug? I think it's a good time to wrap up then.
Want a beard, need a beard, grow a Bigfoot style shit beard? Check out BigDobsBeardBomb.com. And Sean's going to hit you with the promo code.
Why would anybody want to grow a shit beard?
Maybe you want to be like Bigfoot.
I guess so. If you want to make that shit beard smell delicious, so delicious a Bigfoot would eat it. That's just fucking terrible. That plane is going down and I couldn't pull it back up. If you want to get 20% off your entire order at BigDobsBeardBomb.com, use promo code PXLPARA for 20% off your entire purchase. If you haven't been there yet, after you ask yourself, why haven't I, you should go check it out for sure. Hell yeah.
I got one.
What's up?
We're going to be doing a charity marathon gaming session at the end of this month. In literally how many days? 13 days, right? My math is right. Well, no, more than that because we're leaving on the 28th. But on Tuesday, October 30th, to Wednesday, October 31st, from 12 p.m. to 12 p.m. We might go to 1. We'll see. Just to be rebels. We're going to be playing games for 24 hours straight, and it's all going towards Extra Life, which is a charity for Children's Miracle Network hospitals. And Sean here did a new logo, which is super badass.
Wham, wham, wham.
Beep, beep, beep. And we also got a new team name. Sean, what's that team name again? I already forgot.
Pixelated for a purpose.
Yeah, so it's pretty badass. And you can check that out. We'll be sharing a lot of links on our Facebook pages, Pixelated Paranormal page, Twitter, Instagram, all that shit. So be on the lookout for that. Please join us. If you can donate, awesome. If not, just come in there, say what's up.
Yeah, just come watch us. If nothing else, it'll be a good time just to watch us.
Some of the games being played. We're going to be playing some NES classic, some Super Nintendo classic, and I've got every single game available for them. So you name a game you want us to play, whether it's good, shitty, or in between, we'll play it. We also got some Overwatch being played, some new Red Dead Redemption 2, some new Call of Duty, Rock Band, Splatoon 2, Lego Dimensions, GTA 5, and everything in between. So, oh yeah, and also Mario Party. And
it'll be a good time.
And
Corey and I are going to stick it out for the entire 24 hours.
Yeah, they say that.
Vote of confidence from Steve.
Yeah, I ain't gonna fuck. You guys can do it all you want. I don't see the point of everybody trying to pull the 24-hour. People should do it in shifts, and we've got shit to do the next day too, kind of.
Yeah.
So you just don't want to sleep all day long
and I'll be fine the next day.
Like, oh, by the way, do not drink Bang energy drink.
Ooh, why?
Because like the last 2 shows we've done, I've gotten 1 can of that. I never drink energy drinks. I drink quite a bit of. I drink more water than I think a lot of people do. I fucking chug down water all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I drink quite a bit of diet pop as well. And every once in a while, I'll get an energy drink. And for some reason, the Bang energy drink, there's no calories, there's no sugar.
Yeah, it's a pretty tried and true beloved energy drink around health nuts.
Yeah, and like, but every time I drink that, it gives me like extreme like floaty chest pain. Like, I don't know, it's really fucking weird.
Floaty chest sounds like it's akin to that fucking glowing head skeleton Bigfoot.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like, it feels like something's in your chest that's floating, but then it also like
fluttering.
Yeah, like a little bit like fluttering.
Like heartburn.
No, it's not heartburn. It's really weird. So I won't fuck with them no more. I'll stick to
the animals on Bambi might say you're Twitter pated.
But
yeah.
So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. I can't wait. We'll be doing that at the end of this month. So we hope to see you guys there.
Yeah. And we're going to plaster, like Steve said, the social medias probably for the next couple of weeks with that off and on. So just share it for us. Put up with that for about a week or 2 before the event. We're just going to really try to promote that and
another thing
we can take it.
Kind of, I think that because most of the people that donate are friends and family from our Facebooks, because that's usually where we stream it from.
Yeah.
If you're listening and you're not like directly tied to us or anything like that, don't feel bad. And I feel bad because Preston's not going to be there. But don't feel bad that like, oh, well, if I donate to Sean's and I can't donate to Steven's, it'll be awkward. Like, don't worry about that. We have a team page and we have individual pages, but the individual pages all go into the team page.
Yeah.
And in the end, like, it doesn't matter. None of us get none of this money. It all goes to our team page. Then the team page sends it out to the hospitals that are coordinated with our pages.
That's it. Yeah.
So,
and Presto, I think you said you're going to try to help us out from the home, right? You're going to try to jump on and play with us.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah. If we're doing some Overwatch, if I'm off work for that, I'll jump on and.
Hell yeah, that'll be awesome, man. You'll be there. You'll be there, virally, virtually, digitally. Yeah. It's gonna be a good time. I can't wait. It's gonna be very exciting. And
I got some else.
Fuck it. The announcements keep giving. What else, Steve?
Right. I won't go into too many spoilers because Sean here doesn't want to be spoiled with it. But I did get a chance. I also. Technically, no, I can say it because it'll be out before then once this episode releases. I played the Xbox Fallout 76, and I won't get into too much details about it because what I said before. But that game is like very, very lore heavy, and the way that they do the lore, because of the time period between going into the shelter or the fallout shelters and then coming out for Reclamation Day and being around the same time as the Mothman incidents and like all that shit in West Virginia, like the way that they do them stories is spot fucking on. And you pick up tapes that have like news reports that sound like something you would hear over the radio or on a broadcast. You're gonna fucking love it.
That's cool. I can't
So yeah, it's pretty cool. But to anybody out there like naysaying the game, there's gonna be a lot of hate on it because it's not your traditional Fallout game. It's very much more into the vein of just like an open world fetch quest simulator with friends. So like it's not like Sean, you'll think like this is fucking great because you've never played a Fallout game before. So you won't see like the lack to attention to detail that like me and Preston would, who's played every single one of them. So, but in the end, like that's not what they're going for. They're not going for the being able to interact with every little thing on the ground by picking things up. You can still kind of do that by looting and then breaking materials down, but like it's more based off of like doing this shit with your friends together and seeing other people in the world. And I think that's what I want out of it. I've played a ton of hours of all the other ones. I've always said I want a Fallout with co-op, and to me that's what it is. So I think if you're into that shit, hit us up on Xbox Live. I will definitely be getting it. I know Preston will be getting it, so then Sean will get it, and then hopefully we can convince the other two idiots to get it too. It would be so much fun.
Hell yeah, there you go.
We love our friends here.
Yeah, we do. We really do. Speaking of video games, check out Mark's podcast, Pixelated Sausage. He does a solo show about all sorts of great stuff that he is consuming digitally, visually, and everything else. So please give him a little love.
He just did a backlog video.
Yeah, he did.
For not backlog. Yeah, like a kind of like a revisiting backlog game video thing.
Yeah,
I can't remember what game he did, but I knew it was one that I was wanting to get into.
Castlevania. He did a Castlevania one. It's pretty great. So yeah, check it out. Mark is our man behind the scenes. He does a lot for us. So we thank you so much, Mark. And also, Preston, what is my favorite race car podcast ever?
Sports Cars Unleashed.
Yeah, check that out. Yeah. Check out Rich's show. If you like sports cars as much as I do, or even more, you should check it out. So, all right, we've droned on enough. Thank you guys for joining us on this Saturday. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope that if you sit down and listen to it all in one whack, good for you. That was a long one.
Doggy.
Yeah, buddy, well over 2 hours. So, hell yeah. But thank you anyway, guys. Thank you so much for listening. For your new listeners, all you old listeners, and everybody on the Instagram, thank you for joining us there. And we will catch you all next week for our regularly scheduled program. And I think we're just going to do an easy listening Halloween show, just some spooky tales.
Of these nuts.
All right, guys. Catch you next time.
Later.
Peace.
The cast at Pixelated Paranormal would like to thank you for listening to this week's episode. Pixelated Paranormal is here to tell you tales of the fantastical, the strange, the unknown. Tales that will move you a little further down the paranormal highway. If you'd like to share your own listener story, we would love to hear it. You have two ways. One, email us at pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. Again, that's pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, we have that set up too. Dial us at 707-523-4263. Again, that's 707-523-4263. We'd really love to hear from you. Again, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.